Hello and welcome back to the 7 Minutes podcast, where we record at least 7 minutes of content every couple months. I am Zach, going counterclockwise around the table. We have my co-hosts.
Hello, it's Angela.
It is I, Robert.
Hello, Dom here.
Yeah. We have a big episode today, but before we get to the topic, we're going to start like we always do and go over what we've been playing lately. Angie, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I always forget and never bother to look before we start recording what I said I was playing last time, but I'm almost positive last time I had not yet finished Kiwami 3. I have finished Yakuza Kiwami 3. And I believe I gave most of my thoughts in that last episode, so I won't really spend too much time on it. But just long story short, it's got the, all of the great twists and turns of that you would expect from, a Yakuza story and so on. But combat is not as satisfying. It feels too floaty, too soft, a little too ragdoll. And you or your opponents actually do ragdoll, so like you can see that happening, and I don't love that. And just the story doesn't hit as hard as the previous games. And I didn't even really care for 2's story very much, especially compared to 0 and 1, but I actually even prefer 2's story to 3. So that was a little disappointing. I didn't hate it. It was, I finished it and I was like, eh.
So, ranking all the Yakuza games you've played, I
Mhm.
know you put 0 on the top,
For sure.
right?
And then 1, and then Ishin, and then 2, and then 3.
Okay.
Yeah. I did play Dark Ties, which is the Mine sub-story. It's supposed to basically be the equivalent of the Majima saga in Kiwami 2. Mine is definitely an underused character. And without getting into massive spoilers, especially for Robert, I will just say that because I had heard prior to finishing 3 that RGG Studio is not planning on doing another Kiwami game, and I definitely understand why. For long-time fans of the series, it's definitely going to cause, I think, it has already caused some rifts in terms of where they might be going with the series moving forward based on how Kiwami 3 ended. And it does end very differently from the original 3. I didn't play the original 3, so I don't come in with some of the baggage about like, voice changes, face changes, etc. Though I do respect why people were upset about that. But the ending really surprised me just because of I was not expecting where it went. So we'll see where it goes. I really don't know where they're planning on taking the series at this point. I will just say that and this is not a spoiler, and I won't say who said it for Robert's sake especially, but one of the characters at the end mentions how Kiryu is basically self-exiling as a form of torture. Or not torture, I'm sorry, punishment. That he chooses to open the orphanage, and he chooses to step away from the Yakuza as a way of basically atoning for his sins or the negative things he's done, the violence he's committed as a Yakuza. And that basically he is not satisfied running the orphanage, and that he is denying himself this natural part of who he is, this tendency for violence, and frankly, how much he actually enjoys engaging in the fighting and the violence. I have actually kind of argued in my head a similar thing. And so I thought that was interesting hearing this character say that, because I was like, wow, that's actually kind of how I viewed it in some ways. Not exactly like that, but I did think that was really interesting. That being said, I don't know where they're going to take this series because it's almost positive. I'm almost positive they're going to tackle 4, but yeah. So those are my thoughts on 3 without diving too much into it. And then I played Star Fox. Star Fox has come out since we last recorded. Star Fox 64 is one of my favorite games growing up. So I was really happy to see that they remade it. I don't love the art style that they chose. Like nothing will beat the art style, the aesthetic, the original voice work of Star Fox 64. but I do think it was really fun. It
Do you,
handles really well.
do you think like the art style, the aesthetic works well given the like clearly their decision was to do like darker, more vaguely realistic
Hmm.
telling. You think that succeeds at what it's going for at least?
I do. I think what they're going for, it works really well. The game looks very good, but it plays really well. It feels really good. It feels basically kind of essentially what it is, a recreation of the N64 game. Um, the only little things that kind of bother. I think that the soundtrack is amazing, and for a lot of these remakes, the soundtracks are kind of mid because it's just hard to beat the original. But I do feel like, this game's soundtrack really captures, uh, a lot of the sounds in the N64 version. Plus, at this point, we've had a lot of the kind of, the more orchestral, versions of these tracks in, like, Smash, for example, like Brawl, Ultimate. So we've already kind of heard the Star Fox songs in that style. Um, so it really works for me, and they're kind of made for that big booming sound, and they sound really good. Voice work is better than the average Nintendo game for sure that has voice acting. It has the campiness of the N64 one, but it doesn't have all of the right campiness. I know that's a little picky. Rob 64 doesn't sound right. I definitely prefer his voice in the original game. And then there's a particular sound effect when you do a barrel roll and you're deflecting
Mhm.
like shots that are being fired at you or whatever. Um, that sound has been changed and it's not quite as satisfying. It's a really distinct sound in the N64 game, and I'm sad that they took it out. But um, Dom will talk more about some of the other modes that I didn't get to play that
Mm.
you got to play, and that sound very disappointing. uh,
Do you want me to just mention
yeah,
it now?
yeah. I
Yeah.
think you could just dive in now.
Yeah, I didn't beat the game or anything, but I did get a chance to mess with it. I honestly was excited to try out the co-op mode that was introduced in this. And I was anticipating like the second player being able to control their own ship, split screen type of thing. I was disappointed because it's not the case. Both players control the same ship. One player basically controls the boosting and the actual movement of the ship, while the other aims and shoots and uses bombs and all that stuff. Um, on top of it all, the second player controlling the shooting mechanic is forced to use the mouse feature of the Joy-Con. So I was really disappointed by that. Obviously, that's not the main draw to the game, co-op Star Fox, but I just feel like adding some, other options would have been simple enough that for Nintendo to at the very least include.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does seem kind of like obvious as a thing that would appeal to people. The game is premised on being part of a squadron of fighters,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It seems very reasonable to think like your buddy might want to play Falco while you play Fox.
Yeah, like this would have actually been a perfect opportunity for that. For like, you finally, like you're taking control of one of the other three
Hmm.
members of Team Star Fox. And yeah, I was really disappointed when because I watched that treehouse footage when they showed it off, and they were showing off co-op and showing off the online multiplayer. I didn't realize, maybe I don't know if they said it, maybe I just missed it, or maybe they didn't say it, that it was mandatory that that's how you play
Hmm.
co-op. So that was very disappointing to hear. We were talking about that at lunch today before we started recording, but
And the to your point, like it'd be cool to do Falco and Slippy or whatever,
mhm.
right? To control them. I get from a technical standpoint, like, because they're part of like because on rails pretty much,
They've got
right?
Mhm,
their own
mhm.
scripted
Yeah,
routes.
and all that.
Right.
So like I get it if you can't do that, but just a random, other ship,
Right.
that would have been fine. No dialogue or
Yeah,
anything.
like
Right.
ROB is like remotely controlling the second
Yeah.
player ship.
Right.
Something, yeah,
Yeah.
something. You don't even need to really add dialogue. You're
Yeah.
playing split screen. It's not like it's online. So
Yeah.
I don't know. They could have did something a little bit more, but I agree with you. The game looks gorgeous, sounds awesome.
Yeah.
The added cutscenes I think are pretty cool.
Like the added cutscenes because they add a really interesting dynamic to
Hmm.
the team.
Yeah.
I think I might have discussed this last time, but I just really like that they were trying to create an internal conflict, between Falco, essentially not considering Fox a real leader yet,
Hmm.
and Fox being a little brash, being a little hot headed. The only thing I will say, and now I haven't unlocked all of the planets. You know how like there are ways to unlock some of the other planets, and I haven't done that yet, so I haven't seen all the cutscenes. But I will say that my first run through and the path that I took the first time, I don't think that the conflict between Falco and Fox was addressed well enough. Because you get Falco talking a lot of shit, but Fox never rises to him. He never takes the bait. He just kind of ignores it and is just basically like Falco's being Falco. But towards the end, Falco's dissatisfaction with Fox seems to go away because Fox has now proven himself to be a leader and he takes on Andros alone. So you see Falco being friendly towards Fox at the end, but I felt like there was something missing in the middle. Like you never really have a confrontation. You never have Fox basically being like, "What is your problem?" So I'm not sure if maybe if I take some of the other paths, I'll get those scenes. But just from a narrative perspective, I felt like that was kind of missing.
Hmm.
So I haven't really been playing as many games lately because instead I've been writing about games. And I'm I'm writing a Yakuza novel. And I'm about 30 chapters in, and I did a word count last night, and it's like 129,000 words so far, which is roughly about a 400-page novel at this point. And it's I really need to keep it succinct just because it's so long. It's set essentially in 1988 in the world of Yakuza 0, but it's not a one-to-one retelling of Yakuza 0. And the idea came to me because, we get like sad guy Kiryu and we get sad guy Majima and they, I think, have two of the greatest stories of loss. Obviously there are a lot of stories of loss in the series, but I had been considering, like, in my head for a while, what if the story with like Yumi, for example, had wound up differently, or what if um, the story with Makoto had wound up differently, and what if these two guys actually had the influence of like women that they loved, or what if they had the just different influences in their lives? How would that have changed things? Um, and then the first trailer for Stranger Things came out. I'm sorry, not Stranger Things, Stranger Than Heaven. Um, and what was odd was that I had also been thinking about, so I'm thinking about, this what if kind of scenario. And then I started thinking about the Grand. And obviously you have like the iconic intro scene of Majima and the band and everything, but the band doesn't have a singer. So then I had started thinking about that. And it was just like one thing after another. And then I was like, well, what if there was a singer? And then what if she's a complication? What if she actually ends up being like kind of like a love interest? So then I don't know. My mind started going all these different places. Then the first trailer for Stranger Than Heaven dropped, and it has the singer, and it has this very like cabaret grand vibe in the trailer. And I was like, maybe I'm actually kind of onto something here. And so the long and short of it is I just started writing. And like I would started writing individual little like vignettes or scenes, but then I actually wrote out an outline. Um, and am now all of a sudden 30 chapters into this novel.
Do you see an end, or is it just going to be like
I see an end.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so I think probably if I had to estimate how many more chapters I've got left, maybe around 10 is probably how long it'll end up taking to wrap it up. But yeah, I mean, there are some characters that are in 0, and then a lot of characters that are in 0 that don't appear in it just because for various reasons. And then there are characters that don't appear, like, for example, until 1 that I ended up having in the novel. And they're younger versions of them too. So it's been really fun exploring this, especially too from like a character writing perspective and making sure that like I am writing this character's voice authentically, that it actually sounds like this person, and having Zach, read it as I'm going along, and he's giving me good feedback, and both constructive and um, like approving. But it's been good. Like if he's told me, for example, like there was a chapter where I introduced a character that's in 0, and yeah, I actually don't name him until probably maybe a third into the chapter. But Zach said the very first line I read from him, I knew who it was, even before I got to like a physical description of him. So that made me feel good. So just things like that. But that's what I've been actually spending a lot of my time on lately. And I don't know what will happen with it. I don't know if like I finish it and then I try to reach out to Sega or RGG and say, hey, would you be interested in doing something with this? Or it goes nowhere and it's just a pet project and then I share it somewhere for people to read. I don't know, but we'll see.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Very
But
good.
yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Passion project. For
It
sure.
is a massive passion project. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Thanks, Dom.
Cool.
Robert.
Hello. So I'll talk about Star Fox because I unlocked every planet. I did all 3 routes. I mirror Angie's thoughts on. I think of it as the feedback that you get. So the sound effect for barrel rolls and blocking incoming energy beams is this like poof kind of thud sound. And instead, before it was this cool, like kind of electric feedback noise that was really satisfying. But the game has problems with feedback in general. You shoot things in Star Fox 64, and I believe they flash red or have just some kind of indication that
Mhm.
you're hitting them.
Mhm.
This game doesn't do it. Instead, you just kind of get there's a noise, as
Mhm.
you're hitting targets,
Mhm.
but you don't get that visual feedback. And for some of the enemy encounters, it feels beneficial to have it. So, for example, I think it's when you're on Venom and you're going down the corridor chasing after the big running
Mm.
stone guy who's
Mm.
like running away from you the entire fight.
Mhm.
That enemy in the original game uh, would glow bright red as you were hitting him. And I think, don't quote me, I swear I think the bricks look liquidy as you're shooting them too. It's just this very interesting effect, and it's distinct. And given how dark the hallway is as you're hitting him, it's kind of essential that you're getting that feedback because there's so much noise as the pillars come out of the ground and the walls and the music that just the sound of hitting the brick in the new game is not necessarily enough to totally clue you in that you're doing damage to him. It's just not satisfying is a better way of putting it because you can see it falling off of him. You can hear the noise, but the old way was just so much stronger in that regard. Um, I did not like the downplaying of the the chemistry between Falco and Kat. I thought that was super lame. Where instead of having that flirtatious sort of back and forth, the flirtation is implied through Slippy, like "Hey Falco," that kind of a thing. But you don't get any of it actually from Kat and from Falco. And it's like, why? Like, why does this need to be sanitized? Like, it wasn't even remotely like sexual or inappropriate. Like the most you get out of her is I could just kiss you. And it's like, is that a bridge too far in 2026 that Nintendo had to remove it? And I'm sorry, but her character design, she's ugly as hell. She was a cute little pink cat,
Mhm.
and now she's this weird, rugged looking thing, like she was dragged through an alley. Like it's these changes that I really didn't care for. Um, the voice acting's okay. I don't think it's bad by any means, but uh, it's like you cannot tell me that if you sat someone down and said, "I want you to listen to the voice work in Star Fox 64, and I want you to listen to the voice work you're doing here in this game." You can't tell me that you can't hear and feel the energy that Star Fox 64 has compared to the new stuff,
Mhm.
especially from the enemies. It's like the enemies had
Mhm.
these kind of cool, distinct, in many cases, like southern sounding voices.
Mhm.
All that stripped away. They're they're lukewarm at best in terms of their delivery. I don't understand those sorts of changes.
Well, it matches the more like realistic muted graphics too, right?
Mhm.
I think it's probably not that they were trying to recreate the camp of Star Fox 64 and failed. They were probably trying to make it more grounded, quote unquote.
It's just I don't know that I think of it as campy. Like some of the lines I think of as campy, but like they're crazy. I mean, for one thing, the entire premise is insane. They're these animals in space, and it's like Star Wars. And so it's like the premise itself kind of lends itself to being over the top. But I'm just thinking purely in terms of like my ship's about to explode. I think I'd be way more animated even in a grounded situation than what I'm hearing from the bad guys. But those are the main kind of problems I had with the game. But the rest of it's handled really well. The extra cinematics are very solid. And it's nice because the game recognizes what path you're taking. So if you're going from one planet to another, you won't get the same cinematic. You'll actually get one that's a little different, that has bits of another mixed with, it just depends on what planet you're going to. So I thought that was handled really well. I don't totally agree with like the tension with Fox and Falco, only because I feel like it's a Falco likes to talk crap, but he ultimately does respect Fox. It's just he's emotional, and he gets hot under the collar. And I think that Fox knows that. So like I look at Fox as being like a solid leader, and this is why all of these guys trust them and do what they do. And so if Falco's talking crap, like unless Falco like goes way too far, I just see Fox sitting there thinking like, yeah, yeah, whatever, Falco. It's just your usual crap.
Well, the only thing I'd push back on there is that I mean, I don't remember all the dialogue from all the Star Fox games I played. I don't remember Falco just outright questioning Fox's ability to lead like he does in this game. Where he just straight up says, like a real team needs a real leader, and just kind of turns around and sulks.
Yeah, I guess that's true. When does he say that in the game, though? Is it in the beginning or towards the end?
It's in the beginning. It's like after maybe the second stage, I think.
So I think you're supposed to get the sense that they're growing as the mission goes on.
Yeah,
So,
because Peppy gets a little annoyed and says basically like they could have performed better. And he goes, yeah, we need to be acting like as one, like a real team. And then that's when Falco says what he says. So there is this sense that, yes, I think you're right, that they're supposed to be young and they're supposed to be, a little uneasy at first and then they get stronger as they go on. But he definitely seems like that was a genuine jab at Fox's ability to lead.
because the game you're supposed to get a sense of like time passing between missions, and it's
Mhm.
probably maybe even up to a few days between some of them.
Mhm.
So, if you imagine it like that, it's like, oh yeah, they move along and become a tighter unit and all that. So,
Right.
Yeah.
um, graphically, I think it's really strong. Um, I think we do have some disagreements. I think Zach prefers Zero's visual style, but I do think that the graphics in this game are really good.
Mhm.
I don't like Falco's little chicken feet, but
Mm-mm.
the redesigns grew on me. At first, I was like, they just don't really look as cute as they should, because
Yeah,
they've always been kind of cute.
kind of cute.
But see, I think what Nintendo was doing with this one, because it's like it's always like trying to like land this property, like we want this to be a thing. I think they looked at the previous iterations and thought, you know, maybe this time we lean masculine. Let's get
Mhm.
some machismo into the game, because they're like rugged looking
Mhm.
versions of these characters. They're not really cute at all. Even Slippy, he's kind of cute, but even he looks more kind of alien and frog like.
I think it means they don't have any faith in the property in Japan and are just like, what is America like?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like Star Wars. They've tried doing different things with the brand, but uh as some people have said, you've gone away from what Star Wars is. I mean, Star Wars is ultimately a boy brand. It doesn't mean girls don't like it, and it doesn't mean that they can't like it. It just means that this is who it's targeted at. Like, this is what boys are into more often. This is what they like. And so it skews that direction. Star Fox, it's like, well, if you treat it like a quote unquote boys brand, then the crowd that's into these types of sci-fi adventures might finally gravitate towards it. Because if you have it with the traditional look, there's a little bit of it. It's kind of cute. I don't know if I would like to play it. But when you play the game, it's like you're blowing stuff up and it's
I'm
crazy.
surprised they didn't just go with how they designed them in Smash. That seems like a pretty fair middle ground.
Well, even that I think is not masculine enough. Maybe like it's because even the aesthetic of everything is dark.
Mhm.
There's a lot of dark. There's a lot of shadows. It's not a particularly punchy game in terms of color.
Mhm.
That's not to say it's like just brown like a Gears of War game, but you can tell it's more muted. Like
Mhm.
it just feels like they wanted to go darker, and that's what they did.
Mhm.
So yeah, Star Fox is really solid. I'd say it's a B minus, something like that.
Now that you've cleared it and done all the different routes, do you think you're likely to go back to this, or is Star Fox 64 going to be like your regular Star Fox game?
Hmm. I'll definitely play both. I think just because I'm like 800 years old now, I'll go back to the Star Fox 64 one, probably just on instinct more often. But this one plays really well and is fun. So I imagine I'll replay it.
Okay.
One thing I was actually a little disappointed by was, isn't it when you fly into Corneria that Falco in the original says, "This is horrible"?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised that nobody reacted to the destruction of Corneria in this one. He doesn't say that. Nobody reacts to, like, all of the destruction and fire around them. Sorry, so I was, a little disappointed by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is made by a Western dev, if I'm correct. I mean, not to just crap on Western devs, but like, because anyone could do this, but it feels like you get a lot of talk from some of these studios of like, oh yeah, I'm a super fan. I loved it. I played this when I was 5 and blah, blah, blah. And then they miss stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
uh, maybe I'm just too much of a hyper nerd, right? But how do you not get the sound effect for the barrel roll?
Mhm.
Like, I'm just like, if you've played the game, you claim it had this huge impact on you. You've loved it since you were, a little preteen. There's no way you don't have that sound effect burned into your brain. It's just like the sound for the bomb pickups, which they did include, which I
Yeah,
appreciate.
they did keep
But it's
that.
like that's such a unique sound. You will remember it forever. And if you're remaking the game, you'd put it in.
I think they
So
changed the sound effect for when you collect 3 gold coins, 3 gold rings, and your health meter expands, right?
that I can't remember.
I
But
think they might have
I think
changed
that,
that.
it's a little disappointing. You're playing and you have these little changes. It's like, how do you drop the ball on these things?
Well, they again, they probably tried to would maybe try and make an argument for it. It matches the tone better for what we were going for, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's better.
Well, that kind of riffing on this a little bit. The other thing was playing a lot recently is I finally decided to download Spider-Man 2 on my PS5 because it's part of the whatever, the super duper membership. I've been avoiding playing it for various reasons, but the movie just came out, so brand new day, and I really liked it. So I was like in a Spider-Man mood. So I was like, all right, screw it. I feel like playing as Spider-Man and having all the different costumes. So I downloaded it. I will say that mechanically, it's pretty solid. There's little things with traversal that are odd. Like you'll want to just jump down to something. Like I just want to go from this ledge to this spot. And all of a sudden you're swinging around a building because you pressed the button wrong or did something that can get a little annoying. But overall, the sensation of flying through all the buildings, swinging, jumping around, and then beating the crap out of people. You find a crime in progress, you go down and you deal with it. All of that is just so satisfying. And if you're the type of nerd who really loves all the different costumes you can get for Peter, there's so many pulled from the comics that are really good and some that are total crap, but the really good ones it's just worth it to do everything, the side missions, so you can have enough to craft them. But it's the story where it starts to just sort of fall apart. And for me, I think that Insomniac, I mean, the first game's really good. It's not perfect. It has some Dan Slott stuff going on. No, thank you. But overall, solid, right? This game, it's like they got a little full of themselves, like just a little bit self indulgent with certain things. It's like, okay, so we have this memory sequence. Peter's riding on a bicycle with Harry, but where they're like, we can program that in. You can actually ride the bicycle with him, and then you can shoot the basketball. But it's like none of it's particularly memorable. It's like it's not like it's bad, but it's just like, man, this is a lot of like little extra things in here, but it's not really adding anything to the experience. It's not particularly standing out here. So why am I doing it? And there's a bit of that throughout the game. So like there's the beehives that you have to shoot the predators and you're in the drone. And I'm like, I don't even really know why I'm involved in this and it's not particularly fun. So that takes away from the experience. And then just the overwhelming saccharine, too sweet, everyone loves each other vibe throughout the game. It's just like all of Peter's coworkers, they all love him. They all love each other. Every side quest, we're gonna save the world by doing what we can for the bees, and this bicycle is gonna change the world. And I'm just like, these things are not a problem in general. It's that's all the game's throwing at you, just over and over and over, like it's a Saturday morning cartoon. And it's like, Spider-Man is an upbeat character. He's not just constantly dwelling in darkness like Batman can or Spawn. But at the same time, I don't need Peter to just be this like pushover happy guy. It's just like, oh my God.
Spider-Man does have an attitude problem sometimes. That's part of his character, right? He's like a smartass, and yeah.
Yeah, and you also don't get enough of that too in terms of when like he's fighting. Like he's not talking enough shit, kind of like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man didn't. Um but it sucks because it's like you've got so much right. And again, kind of speaking to the Star Fox situation, I'm sure you go to these people that made the game, they tell you, "Oh yeah, I love Spider-Man. I've been duh, duh, duh." And I'm like, "Well, then how do you miss these parts of the character and how they should be?" The character models are distracting, and it ain't just MJ. MJ's in a little bit of potato situation here.
Everybody in this game is ugly.
Yeah, like
Everybody's
everyone's
ugly.
weird looking. Like Peter doesn't really look like Peter. Harry's kind of bizarre. I'm like, you can make this look like the comic. Like it's a game. Like why aren't these characters looking the way that they should? Um, so I do think that takes away from the overall experience. And I'm sorry, but just I got sucked right out when Craven's Hunters show up, and it's this weird, super multinational, multi-ethnic, multi-gender gathering. I'm like, this is not how criminal organizations work. He's Russian. They'd just be a bunch of Russian hunters. And even in that regard, Craven's not like the biggest team player. Like, he'll join the Sinister Six sometimes, but they were a little annoying. So I'd say so far I'd give it a 7, where I would have gave the first game like maybe an 8, 8.5. But there is no denying that the action is fun. And like the combat, like when you're beating the crap out of people and you're using all the different gadgets that Peter has, it just becomes mesmerizing as you're fighting because you're just thinking, man, if I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that, I could beat the crap out of everyone in like 2 seconds. And when you pull it off, that is exactly what happens. Is sometimes you get into a fight and you have just taken everybody out. And it's like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Did you do the fight against Lizard yet?
No,
Okay.
I spent probably 8 to 10 hours playing, and it was almost exclusively doing side quests so I could get all the costumes I wanted to play the game.
Yeah, the one thing that sticks out in my head from playing that game, like the one thing I genuinely enjoyed was the lizard fight. It's pretty epic. It's like a multi-stage thing, and just where it takes you and how it plays out. It was very, very cool.
I will say, some of the talking heads online, they'll talk crap about the Miles stuff and some of the side missions. But there's the deaf girl. Oh, I just had her name in my head and now it's gone. It's not Heather. His deaf potential girlfriend.
Because you got a crush on.
Yeah, people talk crap about the sequence with her. And then there's the homecoming where you have the 2 guys and you help do the message and whatever. I'm like, look, you can't have it both ways. You can't sit and complain and say, oh, they just try to stuff this sort of content into the games and stories. It's like, okay, Miles is his own thing. He's not Peter. Peter's not the one doing this stuff. It's Miles, and he's got his own history and side characters. Technically, they stole his buddy to make him Peter's buddy in the movies. But Miles is his own thing. So it didn't really bug me. And I'm especially like, these are modern day high school kids. Like you would definitely see the 2 dudes getting together for homecoming in, modern day America. So that didn't really bug me as much as some of these other people where they're just like going off on it. I'm like, whatever, man. It's not that big of a deal. I do feel bad for Miles because he doesn't really have a personality. Miles is just, he's nice. It's like, okay. And what else about Miles? What is interesting about Miles? You don't really get it. They're afraid to go anywhere with him. And it's sad because I in general do like him. Like I own the issue where he debuted. Like I know this character, but in the movies and in the games, he's just kind of generic. And then I wish he had better costumes. He has some decent costumes, but if you compare his wardrobe to Peter's, it's like, oh man, I'd rather be in Peter's wardrobe. But anyway, I think those are the 2 main things that I played that I can think of right now.
Cool. Yeah. So I beat.
One more. I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
Do it. Let's hear it.
I'll be quick.
You're good.
Halo.
Come on.
Campaign
Oh, you did?
involved. I haven't beaten it, but I've played a chunk. I'm sorry. It's not as good as the original. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
it looks pretty enough, you know, but I'm just like the amount of disrespect to everything in it is just so frustrating to me. Captain Keyes shows up, they can't even let him have his pipe. I'm like, what's wrong with the man having a pipe? It's like I don't get it. It's like you know, all these people that are like super pro weed, he can't have a pipe.
Mhm.
Like, what is this world we live in? That was stupid. Um, when you are looking at it, even just from a gameplay perspective, it's like there is no dash. Why is Master Chief dashing? It's like you're throwing off some of these fights. And I've seen people posting videos of like the end when you're going through like the swarming flood coming at you. And it's like, I'm just going to dash past this shit. I'm not going to deal with it. Whereas before, you had to be deliberate and methodic because you couldn't go super fast as
Mhm.
Chief. How do you not notice that? How do you miss it? The two cloaked elite guards that have waypoints over them. It's like the whole point is you're not supposed to know they're there. You're not supposed to see them. Why are you telling me where they are? Just like maddening. But again, you know, getting to the character, I can't remember what her name or if she even has a name, but the female space marine that they introduce. My problem with her is that she's super disrespectful to Chief. And I don't get it. It's like, okay, this is your franchise, whether you like it or not. Halo exists because of Master Chief. And yeah, there's been spin-offs, there's been other characters, you have Reach and all those other Space Marines. That's all fine and dandy. You do what you want to make the world of Halo big. But you get on your effing knees and thank that character. You are reverent to that character because that is what the franchise was built off of. Nobody showed up to this game interested in female Space Marine. No one's impressed by her. Then you use her as a means of even if it's in a tiny way of trying to bring him down a peg. Like, yeah, there's other soldiers that are good like you. It's like if you uh play the games, if you read the books, people have massive amounts of respect for Chief. Pause it real quick.
Robert has jumped up and picked up a Halo novelization of some sort. I think he's going to give us dramatic reading. I'm not really sure what's going on here.
Well, I thought you were gonna pause it.
I did, but I thought it'd be funnier for me to unpause and then give you this introduction.
Just give me 1 second.
Robert, how many Halo novelizations have you read?
A few.
A few?
Yes.
Okay. You have a good starting point to recommend?
Well, you gotta read The Flood. That's the first book.
That's the first book, and that's what you're holding right now, right?
Yeah.
So you've read this before. This has been like a reread?
Yes.
Yeah.
After what they did, I had to read it.
Now, is this like a novelization of the first game, or is this a prequel of the first game? Like, how does this fit into the Halo timeline
It's a novelization of the first game.
of the first? Okay.
And they worked with Bungie to make it.
Yeah. This is written like back then in the early 2000s, or
Yes.
be patient with me, Robert. I don't know that much about the like expanded mixed media world of Halo.
You're distracting me. I'm trying to find the passage that I was gonna read. It's a really good one. Here we go. All right, ready?
All right.
We're back.
Okay, so so I'm rereading Halo: The Flood, which is the first novel, and it's the novelization of the first game. And they made this back in the day. It was with Bungie. They collaborated on it. So this is like peak Halo, and it approved by Bungie. This is what we want the novel to sound like, and your characterization. This is Master Chief as he's being thawed out of cryo sleep, and the technician that's working on him. Except they were gone now, all but one, sacrificed to protect the human race from the Covenant and the very real possibility of extinction. Sam gazed on the soldier in front of him with something akin to awe. Here, about to rise as if from a grave, was a true hero. It was a moment to remember, and if he was lucky enough to survive, to tell his children about. It didn't make him any less afraid, however. If the stories were true, the man gradually regaining consciousness in the bay below was almost as alien and certainly as dangerous as the Covenant. Does that sound like a character who some jackass would be saying, guess the propaganda about you is sort of true, or whatever the hell she says?
Propaganda.
Like, it's nonsense. I'm like, why? How do you go from this to this dickhead who is dismissive of him? It's like, especially when you consider the setting of the first Halo, Reach just fell. It's gone, blown up. Humanity's reeling. You have one Spartan left, and he's the best of all of them. Everyone in that ship is like, oh, thank God we've got Master Chief with us. The other ships are probably fucked, but we've got Chief. and he's the best. And not only is it like you love him, like he's awesome, but you have that fear of him too, because the technician's like, wow, like I'm looking at Master Chief right now, and also thinking, damn, he's scary. Like he's gonna
Right.
freaking kill all of them. Like it just the disrespect through the roof. And so in that regard, it really bothers me that Halo Studios did what they did. Because it's just so unnecessary. It's like no one's tuning in for this, dude. Nobody signed up for anything other than you give me the first Halo, make some changes to the graphics. You want to give me a couple more missions, that's fine. I don't need any kind of commentary. I don't need extra characters that didn't exist, particularly if they're just there to undermine the main character. It's like you're celebrating your 25th anniversary. It's like, and by what? By saying after the fact, oh, we kind of got it wrong with the first Halo. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, this is stupid. So I had to get that out there. It was driving me insane. Just go play the original. And if you listen to Marty O'Donnell, the composer, he doesn't even like the Master Chief collection because he thinks it still doesn't quite get it right. He's like, no, go play the original Halo. If you can't do that, the Master Chief collection's good enough. All right, I'm done.
So, as a big Halo fan, I probably will play it in co-op mode with my brother. But I've heard similar remarks. Like, it looks good, but it doesn't look Halo to some people. Like, it's just like an Unreal 5 game. But I'll probably still give it a go. So yeah, for me, I finished one game and I'm currently playing two. The one game I did finish is Adventures of Elliot. So this one I was super excited for when it was announced. So it's a Square HD 2D style game. Looks very much graphically similar to Octopath, but nothing else is similar. Like Octopath, there is a lot of writing, a lot of storytelling, but yeah, this is just like you're kind of top down. Um, Link to the Past style combat. It was very much compared to Zelda with the dungeons, the combat style, the bosses, all that stuff. So for me, story wise, I think the story is really great. It's unfortunate that a lot of the good stuff is locked behind the third quote unquote best ending. So there's three endings in the game, and the way they handle it is pretty cool though. So you beat the game once and you get like a bronze completion, but you fire up the game again and then it sort of leads you on. Um, it'll start you back before the final boss or whatever, but it will kind of guide you to do some extra stuff. You do that extra stuff and then you get the second, middle ending. And then now you do the third ending. It was the same sort of thing, but I found that so much storytelling, like draw dropping moments, came in that third go around. And so why roll the credits three times to get there? So I thought that was a weird choice because if you go on how long to beat or whatever, it's like 15, 20 hours tops. I had like 50 hours in the game, between all the exploring and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that was a miss because I don't think everybody's going to go through all that trouble.
It doesn't like signpost that that's how it works. I don't know, because like Nier Automata does the same thing. I think you need to. There are like 5 endings you're supposed to get by the time you're done with it, and like subsequent playthroughs take less time than the first one do. But the thing that everybody like cries over is that very last like ending E or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the true best ending. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe. Luckily, it's not playthroughs. It's just
Yeah.
like you just carry on. So a couple things I'll say. Exploration's fun. I love the dungeons. The bosses are incredible. A lot of them are really unique with the dodging and stuff like that. Couple gripes about the exploration itself. There's 4 time periods of the same map. Okay, and each time you have to uncover everything again. Like it's clouded all over again. And so first 2 times, cool, whatever. Then it's like, oh damn, there's a third timeline. Okay. Damn, there's a fourth timeline. I'm like, this is kind of getting repetitive.
Yeah.
You do have to go through the same dungeons again. Everything's kind of tweaked, like pillars might be destroyed, later on, as opposed to when you go back in time. Everything's like full.
Yeah, this is stuff like I can put up with, but I don't really like. I'd rather have new biomes, and there's also just like this sense of like losing where I am or what's going on. Like it's hard to have like a mental map of a dungeon when there's like 4 different versions of it you go through.
Mhm.
Well,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Silent Hill F, I think, tackled this in a really interesting way, where you're going through the same places, but you're getting different dialogue, or you're finding the same items, like the same notes or whatever, but they say different things. And so and then of course there are some different cutscenes. So you are going through the same game, but it's also different in a lot of ways. And then I believe that like the health and all the different upgrades that you get from one playthrough track over to the next and then the next. So you aren't having to do it basically
Yeah.
almost from scratch every time.
Yeah. And yeah, that's for playthroughs. This is all one playthrough though. Like think of it as, like in Link Between Worlds, it's
Yeah.
like, or even Link to the Past, right? It's like Dark World, Light World.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like
Oh,
that.
okay,
It doesn't stray that much.
Yeah.
And it's different, literally different time periods, like
Oh,
hundreds
got
of
it.
years apart.
Okay.
And it's fine. So one gripe for the game that I've heard was the hand holding of like your companion.
Yeah.
Which actually holds true. It was really irritating.
Mhm.
But what pissed me off is that it's like you didn't handhold in the places I would have appreciated it.
Oh.
So I'll go through a dungeon, right? That I'm doing exploring. I'm going through a dungeon, and I'm going through, and I see that there's no more treasure chests here. I'm like, okay, cool, but there's still places to go. I'm like, maybe there's something at the end. So I'm going through the dungeon up until the very end. Nothing, right? It's a big room. In a different timeline, a boss would be there. Okay. But I get to the room and then the fairy's like, oh, we should just come back in a different time period. I think there's something here next time. And I'm like,
You just holding that in?
yeah, exactly. Like I spent 20 minutes, killing enemies, going through everything. And I know there's no treasure chest, but maybe there's something else, shit, like a boss or something.
Yeah.
And that was pretty irritating. When I played through the game, for the most part, my companion's voice was so annoying because she says everything. Every time you open the map, it's where are we? Every time. Every single time. Every time a treasure
They patched that out, right?
So you have the option to toggle her. In the beginning, you had a chance to already say talkative or quiet. And even on quiet, it's like ridiculous. I can't even imagine if you chose talkative. You have to be insane.
It's like a screen reader.
Exactly.
You're moving up and down now.
No, seriously. And then if you pass by treasure, it's like, ooh, treasure. Best one, you're swimming. It's like, nice stroke, Elliot.
Come on, kids.
Yeah.
Vigorous.
Couple other things, because I put about 50 something hours in this game, so it took a lot of time. I enjoyed it thoroughly, but aside from what I was saying, the magicite system is kind of like to tweak your stuff. You have about 8 different weapons you can use. All of them I really liked, like boomerang, spears, swords, hammers, all that stuff. But like for an example, for magicite, if you equipped like your sword with one, it would say, oh, the first 10 seconds after you switch weapons to a sword, you get 25% boost in attack. So like I'd hit with a spear and then switch to the sword, and like you have a damage boost. So like little things like that was awesome. I wish the bomb was like another button, because the game is literally just 2 buttons, your main weapon and sub weapon. That's it. You can't like equip other weapons, or like your bow and arrow could be the R1 or something. It wasn't like that, so I missed that. That would have been nice, like the Zelda touch, being able to use those items other than your main sword or whatever. But yeah, that game, I mean, I liked it a lot. The story at the end, I was like, damn, this was a really good story. I wish I could just turn off the voice acting. When you turn off the voice acting, though, you can't even hear him like grunt or anything when you're like swinging your sword. Like that kind of stuff. I want that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could recommend it. But it did take a lot of time. Currently, I'm playing Resident Evil 9, so I got back into it. I started that at launch and played a bunch, but I set it down and came back to it now. I'm in the middle of it, and now I'm hooked. There's like a few sequences where I'm at, and Rob knows what I'm talking about, when you're exploring the city. After you do that part, and you're like, damn, this is cool. You know what I'm talking about? Like, man. And then as far as like being a horror game, the grace sections that I'm playing in first person mode are absolutely the ones that scare the hell out of me.
Mm.
I don't feel too scared as Leon because he has he has so much ammo. Like I just feel like a complete badass with Leon. A couple decisions they made I love. The unbreakable axe is huge because it pissed me off in prior RE games where it'd be like one shank and you're like it breaks.
Yeah.
I thought it does break eventually, though.
So it does, but you just sharpen it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't. It like dulls. So that element's fine, but you just and sharpening takes like a quick second. So I think that's awesome. Like my favorite thing is you'd be in like the gray sections in the beginning, and then you'd go back as Leon, and you just like shotgun, and then he staggers. You just go and like hit him with the axe. And he's just like boom. Like I think the action with Leon is so good, and I'm not gonna get into too much of it because I know Angie's gonna play it, and Zach probably will play it. But I think you both will love it, especially you, Angie. I think Leon's a badass in this game, and some of the little one-liners, man, it's like oh man. It's cool, yeah.
I'm a little bit of a coward, so I still get scared during the Leon sections. Like, there's some stuff in
No, there is. You're right.
where I'm just like, oh, what the hell? I don't care how powerful I am. I don't want to be here.
No, you're right.
So would you say what you've played so far? See, for me, it's a top 3. Not even top 5. Like, I'd say it's among my favorites ever of playing Resident
So
Evil.
far, after the middle section, it's become like, oh, this is going to be my game of the year, more than likely, and one of my favorite REs for sure.
When we can finally discuss the story, I do have some issues there. There's a couple things that don't work exactly.
It's too cool for me to care about. Like, I get it though, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Well, maybe not because I haven't finished it, but I'm loving it. And then lastly, I'm still just fucking around in Crimson Desert. So I've just sort of accepted that game is not a story game at all, and it's just going to be more of like Breath of the Wild with no story. Not that Breath of the Wild had much of one,
Yeah.
but it's like there's so much in that game that they got from Breath of the Wild that I'm just kind of just playing it as that, the shrines, the puzzles, stuff like that. But the game is gorgeous looking. I shared a screenshot with you guys in the chat. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just in awe sometimes that it's running at like 100 frames per second, looking like that.
Yeah.
Like they did an outstanding job, and Crimson Desert should be their whole crew should be applauded because they're ripping out putting out updates like on a freaking every other day basis. Like they'll take the feedback and just implement it right away. And like now it's a completely different game than launch. And usually, I feel like why release an unfinished product? But they're so quick to just accepting feedback, making the change, say, hey, we've improved here. Try it out. And it's a huge game. I've heard people putting 200, 300 hours into it. So it's just going to be one of those games. Don't have nothing to play. I'm just going to throw that on, do a couple little, missions, uncover more of the map, stuff like that. I'm playing on controller. I heard keyboard and mouse is a little easier, but it's like a little weird. Certain attacks and certain movements you'd have to like hit and on a PS4 or 5 controller be like R1 and R2 at the same time to like do a certain attack. And like that takes a minute to wrap your head around. It's like I've never played a game where I had to do that. But it looks crazy. I think the main character Cliff is pretty badass too. So that's what I've been up to.
Real quick before I forget, there were 2 things I wanted to mention. Spidey has a waypoint issue because there's objectives where you can scan and the game will kind of highlight where you should go. But there were moments where I was like just legitimately like, I have no clue where I'm supposed to be going. And even if I hit the button to scan it, it's like R3, I think, it wouldn't show you. So I'm just like standing there like, I don't know where to go. And then the game's pretty old at this point, and it was still glitching on me with certain things where like I get into a fight, especially on a roof, and an enemy might just kind of disappear and then the battle doesn't want to end. So you lose the XP from the fight because he's off wherever. So that was a little frustrating. And then in Halo, there was one other thing that frustrated me. I know accessibility is like a big thing. I don't know if maybe I did something or not, but when I booted it up for the first time, I noticed it was weird. Like
This is happening for all the Microsoft Studios games. We noticed that with Forza, and I think something else recently.
Was it the screen reader being on?
Yes.
just
On by default, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting it. And so I'm like, it's saying press A. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I don't remember that in the original game, And so then I did, and then like every menu I was going was like, start game, this, that, options, blah, blah, blah. And but then it was so fast. So like every time it just instantly was like campaign, start campaign, options, start campaign, options. It's like, what is going on? And then, it lets me go into the accessibility options and I'm like, okay, this has to be the fucking screen reader. I bet it's on. And I looked, it's like, yep, it's on. And I'm like, did I do this? Or was it just
It's
by
toggled on
default?
by
Yeah,
default.
it's toggled
And it's so
on.
damn loud,
It
too.
is loud. When
It's
I
super
when I started playing Forza, I was like, "Oh, this is an interesting feature." And then like Robert, it was just like it just kept going and going.
Yeah.
It was so loud, and I was just like, "Can I turn this off? What is this?" And then Zach was like, "Oh, it's an accessibility."
And then the
thing."
next thing Forza does is ask if which prosthetic you want
Yeah.
to use.
Well, I will say this, right? Like, accessibility is supposed to be about usability, right? Making it easier for everyone. It's like, okay, by your logic, you're being nice by turning on the screen reader for the people who need the screen reader. I'm diabetic. I actually have a lot of trouble reading text in my games. I will go in, and if I could blow up the text, I'll do it. Why is the screen reader on? Like, I don't even get it. I'm like, what percentage of player even truly, like, legitimately needs it? Not I want it, like, for whatever reason, like people put captions on when they watch movies, even if they don't need it.
Right.
Who actually genuinely needs the screen reader?
It's a cool feature, and it's one that like the people who need it are gonna have trouble reaching a menu to turn it on. So like I get it from that perspective, but I've like it really should just be like you get like your splash screen with like, published by whoever, and then you get like
Turn on
hold the
screen
X
reader.
button for
Yeah.
3 seconds if you need the screen reader
Yes,
turned
exactly.
on, right?
Because
And then progress to the
Right
rest
from
of
the
game.
jump. Like,
Yeah, because by this logic, you should say that the colorblind mode should just automatically be on,
Right,
because they're not going to be
exactly.
able to read the words.
Exactly. No,
It's like
100%.
Zach's makes way more sense from a
Yep.
design standpoint. It's like having an option. Need colorblind mode, press X. Need screen reader mode, hold
Yeah.
R, whatever. But instead, it's just on by default, and it's like it's just, I'm sorry, I just look at it as virtue signaling. Like, look how thoughtful we are, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's not usable, dude. Like, you're annoying me because it's like it's legitimately maddening for someone who doesn't need it, and the majority of people aren't going to use it. So find a way to get it in there, make everyone happy, but it doesn't need to be like right in my face when it doesn't make sense.
And then, like you said, it's like it does feel a bit like it's virtue signaling when it's also not implemented super well. If it, like Robert said, if you're speeding through the text, it's like, oh, sorry, what did you say? Yeah, like they said it so fast. So yeah.
Zach's turn.
Am I up? All right. Well, I have been continuing to take one game of each genre, one by one. About 2/3 done in total now. Last time we recorded, I had been finishing up Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. After that, my next genre was third-person shooter. I was kind of toying with the idea of doing Pragmata. I didn't. And then I was toying with the idea of doing Wanted Dead, which was by Soleil. It came out a couple of years ago. Soleil is a company that Tomonobu Itagaki was associated with after he left Team Ninja. They made Devil's Third. But I'd heard like mixed things about Wanted Dead and was kind of curious about it. However, in the end, I decided for ages, the Armored Core series has been on my backlog. They are third-person shooters. They're like mech-based third-person shooters. But I thought, like, you know what? Sure, I'll try one of those. And then it was a decision of which to play. 6 was going to be the most modern. I was curious about 4 because that was the first game that Miyazaki, the Dark Souls guy, directed. But after like looking into the series, I ended up picking just the very first one. I thought like the aesthetic in the world seemed very cool, like very like PlayStation 1 gritty. It's awkward to control. Armored Core 1 came out before analog sticks were part of PlayStation controllers. So you're like moving around a 3D environment, but like the D-pad, up and down on the D-pad move you towards the world and then backwards. Right and left on the D-pad turn you left and right. And then it's like the L2 and R2 make you angle your camera up and down, and L1 and R1 have you strafe left and right. So it's a lot to like wrap your head around. I did consider when I was sitting down to play this, like, listen, I'm just emulating it. Do I remap the controls to use
Did
analog
it
sticks?
ever click and work for you?
It got better. And I think for a lot of games, this would have been like a blocker for me. But the thing about Armored Core is like you're not a person, you're piloting a mech. And like there's a way in which awkwardness kind of suits the mechanics in a way that wouldn't be true if you were playing as like
I see it.
Master Chief or whatever. So I stuck with it. It did get less awkward over time, but there's still that awkwardness there. I think if you're just looking at it like kinesthetically as a third person shooter, I would not recommend the original Armored Core, but like the world building and tone is super cool. It's this, near future dystopian thing where different like mega corporations are fighting proxy wars against each other by hiring mercenaries to sabotage each other and things like that. You're working for a mercenary company. And yeah, it's like super dehumanizing. You never even see your character. You just see like a computer screen where you're like picking missions. The first two missions that you can pick in the game, one is called Eliminate Strikers and the other is called Eliminate Squatters. So, to give some sense of the tone of the game, either you are being hired by a landlord to shoot up all the people who are in like an abandoned factory, or you're hired, I think, by one of the corporations to like just kill everyone striking against that company on like a bridge. So the whole thing is like really negative, cynical tone. There's also this really cool thing the game does where like you're working for this mercenary company. Every time, like every bullet you fire and every like bullet you get hit by, like it comes out of your pay. And depending on how well you play, you can lose more money than you get paid for going on missions. You don't lose right away, but you start building up a tab basically. And then if your tab gets big enough, what happens is the company trying to like recoup its investments kidnaps you, operates on you to turn you into a cyborg so that you're like a more effective killing machine. This is basically how the game does easy mode is like if you suck enough, you get put through what they call the Human Plus program and then you're a better killing machine. You're more effective. So like really cool world building and just tone setting. That stuff was really cool.
When you brought up Armor Core 6, I did play a couple hours of that. I didn't like stick to it, but that whole economy angle was like very upfront. I thought that was really cool though.
Yeah.
Was there much like an upgrade system in the OG?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot of it is just there's like some objective upgrades, but also a lot of it is just like weighing your advantages and disadvantages and trying to figure out like what kind of player are you because there are builds you can make that are tankier and others that are like quicker but more vulnerable. So it's like how much do you trust your ability to do all this like aerial dodging and boosting around?
Yeah.
What was one thing that was really weird is like the ammo economy in the missions was really tight. So like if you were bad at aiming, you could like literally end up without any ammo to finish a mission. And then all you have is your little short range energy sword that you have to like run up and slash and hope that you don't die. Because there's no way to heal either. However much energy you go into the fight with is how much you have. The individual missions are pretty short. A lot of them are like just, 2 to 5 minutes. But yeah.
Are you interested in playing any other ones?
Yeah, for sure. I do want to try both 4 and 6. And also I've heard 3 is really good. 5 is the only one I think I'm not interested in. That one I know is supposed to be more multiplayer focused. But also like there's like 15 games in this series total, right? There's like Armored Core 1 and then Armored Core 2, but there's a couple more games between 1 and 2. And the same with I think like there's like between Armored Core 3 and 4 there's like 5 games, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, that was very cool. After that, next one was a platformer, and I picked Crash Bandicoot 4. I felt like, I played Donkey Kong Bonanza last year, did not care for it, and Tropical Freeze came out in like 2013 or 2014, and it was like a similar time frame for Mario 3D World. Odyssey is of course more recent. I liked Odyssey enough, but I do prefer like the more like challenging platformers that Nintendo has released. And I feel like I got to a point where like I'm done waiting for Nintendo to release more challenging platformers. And so I went back to Crash Bandicoot, which is something I enjoyed back on the original PlayStation. And it's just like, I didn't think of this before, but I do feel like Crash Bandicoot is kind of similar to Donkey Kong Country in 3D in terms of like how it handles like momentum and challenge. It's even got kind of like jungle theming, so actually like as a surrogate, because Nintendo hasn't been making Donkey Kong Country games anymore, I did like Crash 4. I don't think there's as much to say about it, but I had a good time with it. After that, it was a beat 'em up. I played Streets of Rage 2 on the Genesis, and I really ended up liking that. I went for like a 1cc like I had when I did Shmup earlier in the year for Androdunos. They're very different kinds of 1cc because Androdunos uh, is ultimately a very deterministic game, and there's like variance from one run to the next, but it's because of like the timing of the decisions I'm making that can affect like where enemies are firing bullets or things like that. But Streets of Rage 2 has a lot of randomness baked into the enemy design, so you're dealing with swarms of enemies, and you need to watch for what each enemy is doing to decide how best to react to it. So there's a lot of randomness. Sometimes you just get unlucky. No, I thought it was extremely good. Aesthetically, like the soundtrack is fantastic, but just the process of practicing this and working through it,
Mhm.
really, really good. I would definitely try Streets of Rage 3. I think because I tried one seeing Final Fight very briefly last year or the year before. It's Final Fight's way harder than Streets of Rage, so that kind of dissuaded me from continuing with that. But I think I'd probably try once seeing other arcade beat 'em ups
You
too.
were a Streets of Rage 4 fan, right? Or
I played a bit of it. I wasn't that crazy about it.
Mm.
I should probably give it another shot at some point, honestly. Because like that's the one game from like this modern beat 'em up renaissance that
Mhm.
I think its reputation was like high when it came out, but has like stayed really high.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
After that was Grand Strategy, which probably not everyone knows what Grand Strategy means, but it's like a strategy game that's not just waging war, it's also like empire building and civil administration and building alliances and things like that. I had originally tried to play a Romance of the Three Kingdoms themed game because I love that so much. And there are examples. There's a whole series called Romance of the Three Kingdoms of grand strategy games. Tried that, thought it was super boring. I tried Sega has a series called Total War. There's a Three Kingdoms version of that. So I tried that, thought that was super boring. So before giving up, I was like, okay, well, what is actually like the go-to like generic recommendation people make for a grand strategy game?
Okay, so yeah, my bad. So that was the genre. Grand
Grand
Strategy was
strategy
the
is the genre, yeah.
Grand Strategy.
Grand
I thought that was the
strategy.
title of the game at
No,
first,
no. Yeah.
but I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
So what did they tell? What did it?
So Civilization is one that's often recommended. That's kind of like the
Mm,
grandfather of the
yeah,
genre.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
the other one that I was interested in is this is one company that just makes this kind of game. They're called Paradox Interactive, and there's a bunch of them. So they have one series called Victoria that's like Industrial Revolution era. They got
Mhm,
another one, I can't remember the name, but it's based on like the Age of Discovery, like Age of Sail
mhm.
stuff, colonization. They've got a sci-fi one called Stellaris. But the
I heard
one
good things about Stellaris.
yeah.
Yeah.
The one I saw recommended the most is called Crusader Kings, which is a Middle Ages one.
Mhm.
So I picked up Crusader Kings 3. And yeah, that actually ended up being pretty interesting. The thing that makes that interesting where Total War and Romance of the Three Kingdoms were boring is that Crusader Kings is a lot more focused on like palace intrigue and individual personalities and like random twists of fate. Like my character and their heir came down with like consumption or something, and all of a sudden I'm like, am I gonna survive? And like, do I need to like you get these events pop up, and where it's like, do I want to like close the walls, basically seal off my capital so that to like prevent the spread of this disease to the countryside? And there's like these more like interesting consequences and decisions that are being presented to you constantly. Whereas when I was playing Romance of the Three Kingdoms, it was like, would you like to build some more spears this turn? And I'm like, sure, like spears sound good, but like it's kind of like a
Mhm.
dull resource-based decision rather than actual like you could Crusader Kings 3 plays like a story rather than like a spreadsheet. So I ended up listen, I'm probably not going to be a grand strategy guy, but I did enjoy my time with
Yeah.
Crusader Kings 3. And then the last one is character action. I was originally thinking about playing Zone of Enders 2, which I've heard good things about, but I kind of felt like Zone of Enders 2 is like a mech game where it's a mix of melee and uh, long distance attacks. Armored Core is a mech game where it's a mix of melee and long distance attacks. So like that, even though like one is more focused on the long distance attacks and the other more focused on the melee, I just felt like those were too close to really
Mhm.
do. So I ended up picking up Wonderful 101 Remastered. I had played Wonderful 101 briefly on the Wii U, so like 12, 13 years ago or whatever. And I didn't like it at the time, but it was really like a snap judgment that I don't feel confident in. And I liked Star Fox Zero a lot, which was like Platinum's other kind of like black sheep mixed reception game on the Wii U. So I was like, sure, let's go for it. It's got like a big personality. It's like kind of like this hokey, very bright Saturday morning cartoon vibe. And there's a lot of interesting ideas woven into the combat that like it's a mix of like character action and Pikmin style controls, which is very strange. Like kudos to them for trying. I don't really like it though. You are doing like in Okami when you're doing like the brush stroke
Mhm.
things. That's how you switch into different modes in Wonderful 101. Wonderful 101, it's like it's a big cloud of characters. And there are certain like heroic characters that are each associated with a tool. So like Wonder Red is associated with a hand, so he's got like a big fist that you can punch enemies. Wonder Blue's got a huge sword. Wonder Green has a gun, etc. And each of those has a different gesture that you draw. How big you draw it affects how powerful it is. You can also just like mess it up. And this is like real time also.
Beautiful Joe was a Clover Studios game, right?
Yeah. And
And
also Kamiya, same director.
that's what I was gonna ask. And was Wonderful 101 also a Clover Studios game?
No, it was Platinum.
Oh, right.
This is like before and after Clover
Okay.
closed.
Oh, got it. Okay. Because I was gonna ask if that was not just a coincidence, but like a.
It's a similar like heroic vibe because they're kind of like chibi tokusatsu, I think is the term, heroes, like Kamen Rider, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I found like in a live action game, like not live action, but like real time action game, having to draw those shapes just feels really awkward and unfun to me. And the other weird thing about this game is it's just like it will not shut up with like mini games and like cutscenes and little interruptions. It feels like just like a constant random grab bag of things that are happening, constantly breaking up the combat to the point that it's frustrating. I've seen people say that this is like one of the best games ever made if you give it the time. So like if you go all the way through, really master all the mechanics, and you go back and you're like replaying the missions, there's just so much depth and it's such an interesting combat system. I don't think I can get there. I don't think I can put up with it enough to get there. It is a shame, but like it is what it is. And then the only other thing I can really say about what I've been playing is, of course, I've been playing Final Fantasy 14. There's new content drop that came out, The Occult Crescent, Part 2, The North Horn, which is just kind of like grindy, mid-core, sort of challenging, but not like super challenging content. It's a fun time. It's one of the things I was most looking forward to in Dawn Trail, and I like it. I don't think it's as good as the corresponding content from Shadowbringers from a few years ago, but it is still good. That's about it.
One thing I want to add before we move on is that it's the end of an era. Mario Kart Tour is officially shutting down on September 29th. And over all these years that we've been doing this, I think it's been the entire time I've been playing this game. I've had times where I wasn't playing it for a long time, or I was off and on with it, but I'm very disappointed that it's going away.
Pour one out, guys.
Mhm.
Pour one out.
For real. I mean, I find it very strange that they're not just letting it have an offline mode when the DLC from 8 is there's so many Mario Kart Tour
Mhm.
tracks. And so I can't think of another example of a Mario Kart game that is no longer accessible, just no longer playable, but there's vestiges of it in other games. It's just it seems like it'll be very odd to me to just be like, "Oh yeah, there's this game that you can't play anymore and you can't access anymore, but here's some tracks from it when it was around." It's just
Rather perfect segue into one of our topics for today, if you think about it.
yeah, we'll get there. But I also just wanted to mention that because the embargo's lifted, I can talk about it really briefly. I also got to go to Capcom and try Onimusha Way of the Sword. When Robert and I went to SGF, we got to see some gameplay of it being played for us, but I got to give it a shot on both the PS5 and the Switch 2. And the long and short of it, and I'll keep it brief, is that on the PS5, it looks incredible. It plays really, really well, really smooth. I was really having a lot of fun with the archery because he has, I believe it's with R2. You could pull out a bow and arrow, and it's unlimited arrows. But the very first shot I fired off was a headshot, and I was like, "Oh, I think I'm really gonna like this." So it feels really good to aim. Um, uh, Really, I mean, like the Japan. I was playing with the Japanese voices on, and it sounded really good. Uh,
The
the
English voice actors aren't bad, but
Yeah, but I definitely preferred the Japanese and
Are you gonna play the full version when it comes out?
yeah,
Mm.
I def playing it, I was like, I think I would actually really enjoy this game. Musashi is very cool as a protagonist, and the environments are really unnerving. You know, they're taken over by these demons,
Mhm.
and you're having to, and it's in Kyoto, and you're having to try and save people, but you're watching these demons like overrun
Mhm.
people. And there are times when you're like running through and you're going from A to B, but you have the opportunity to stop and save somebody if you want to. You don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to, but you'll get good things from it. Um, or you could be in the middle of trying to help them and then you're not fast enough.
Mhm.
And, uh, I didn't have it happen, but it seemed like what was going to happen was basically like they would die
Mhm.
and that would be it. Um, so very enjoyable. There were only a couple of times when I was playing through where there was like one thing that was very obscure and I did not know how to move forward and I was embarrassed because I had to ask the guy like I was like, "I'm sorry if I'm being obtuse. I have no idea how to move forward here." And he was like, "No, like you're not the only one. Like this is yeah.
Yeah, there will be a big arrow here in the final build.
There will be white paint, there will be yellow paint." But no, it was actually slightly obscure and I didn't feel so bad once he showed me. I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, why do you have it like that?"
Mhm.
But anyway, but the boss fight I did was amazing. That was incredibly fun. Um, it was just a really great
Mhm.
experience.
Was it the enemy covered in the white papers?
No, it was a big fat human eating demon thing. And
Mm.
he was supposed to be like grotesquely like large and just gross.
Mhm.
It was a very like just intense fight. And Musashi's combat is very satisfying. It'll kind of indicate to you on screen, like press circle now or do this now. Um to like show you that you can do whatever special ability or block this or parry this at this time. It was just very fun. And then for the Switch 2, we were only allowed to try it handheld. We were not allowed to try it docked. I'm assuming that's probably for a reason right now. Game comes out, I think, September 4th, so they still have some time to be messing around with things.
Mhm.
Um, but I tried, it was like a training mode. And so you could go and like just fight all these different bosses, or you could try and master all of these different abilities that Musashi has. And that was a lot of fun too, because I also got to try out some bosses that were not available in the PS5 version where they put me to play. So yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely would be getting that game.
yeah, I think Onimusha should be on most people's radars. Like it's, I've been looking at it for 2 years. They keep showing it off,
Yeah.
and like it's, it could run the risk of it's yet another, period piece, Japan, the ancient temple, blah blah blah. But because of the kind of horror infused aesthetic with all the different, uh, demon creatures running around, it makes it a lot more interesting looking, and you're kind of genuinely wondering, like, what are you going to see next?
Mhm.
There's also the mystery of there's like a spirit. It kind of reminded me of Phi, the spirit of the Master Sword. There is this woman that's trapped in your gauntlet,
Mhm.
and it's not really clear what her story is yet. But speaking with her, and then you have like your other, I don't want to call them sidekicks, but just the friends of Musashi, and yeah, it looks amazing. It was just incredibly fun to play. I really didn't want to stop playing it once I sat down and started. So that's a good early sign, I think, for me.
uh,
No.
I should mention too, I went to Nintendo's very tiny preview session for San Diego Comic Con. They had two games on display. One of them's already out, so I'll just say that Splatoon Raiders is fun. I did three different stages. They were all super entertaining. Splatoon Raiders is definitely worth picking up if you like uh, the first three games that have come out. It is single player focused, but there's been single player campaigns, I think, in all three games. And all three of those games demonstrated to me that the mechanics of Splatoon can carry over to more than just the multiplayer stuff where you're covering the ground and the walls and shooting at each other. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it in terms of taking out enemies and even platforming. So that was fun. But the one that hasn't come out yet is Switch Sports Resort. And I told the reps, I was like, this should have been a summer game. It just screams summer. Like everybody's home,
Mhm.
especially kids, right? It's like everybody's on summer vacation. You could all be bowling and jet skiing and whatever. But it comes out in October. I got to do the jet skiing. That was fun. It was very intuitive. It was just sort of like a simple. Was it a race or were you just going around a track? It's one of those things that was like relaxing, and there's more challenge to it if you want to look for it. But it's just fun jet skiing and looking at the water. Bowling, of course, is great. They had me do the 100 pin bowling, which I forgot about. And I was like, oh yeah, the 100 pin bowling, and so the mechanics felt good. I think the bowling felt a little better here than it did in Switch Sports.
Mm.
Because Switch Sports is fun, but it doesn't feel quite as satisfying as Wii Sports.
Mhm.
Switch Sports Resort, I feel like they've sort of started to get some of that feel back. The thumb wrestling was surprisingly fun. Like I almost skipped it because I was like, I'm not gonna want to do the thumb wrestling. But I was like, no, don't be lazy. Like go try everything. So I did the thumb wrestling and it was actually pretty funny. I imagine it would be way funner when you're playing a real person too, because the computer was entertaining, but I'm just thinking, man, with another person in the room, it would be funny. And like you do these different things to power up your thumb's crushing ability. So I can't remember what it was. It was like some button presses or something, but you do that, and then you're like your thumb gets bigger. So that was pretty hilarious. And then the archery was nice. It wasn't too easy, if that makes any sense. Like you pull back on the bow and your target reticle shrinks, but it doesn't go exactly to where you're going to hit. It shows you roughly where it will hit, and you've got to determine, where you think it's going to land. So that was pretty solid. So I would say both of the games I got to look at, I really enjoyed. Splatoon Raiders is worth picking up, and it's looking like Switch Sports Resort will also be worth getting. All right.
All right. So we can move on to the primary discussion topic of the day. On this podcast, we often discuss recent news, current events in gaming. But a lot of that news is like more predictable. New releases that are going to be coming out, or oh, here's a price hike for Game Pass or something, or there's more layoffs in the North American AAA space, or more mergers, or things like that. It all feels very foreseeable, kind of like in The Dark Knight when the Joker is delivering that monologue about it all going according to plan. It's like normal news, right? But this is actually new news, kind of like a momentous thing, and the kind that does not happen that often. I was trying to think of like similarly big news over the past decade in games, and the list I came up with was like Nintendo's release of the Switch, which combines like the handheld and console games into a single thing, kind of killed off dedicated handheld game consoles. Two, Valve's release of like SteamOS and the Steam Deck, kind of turning the PC into a more console-like space, which we're still seeing Sony and Microsoft react to in their business models. And then three, like the AI hardware crisis affecting like the prices of all sorts of things. Like this is like, I think, like that tier. I'll stop beating around the bush. What we're talking about is like Sony's announcement that they're going to stop making physical games altogether at the start of 2028. We don't know for sure what other players in the industry are going to do. We know Xbox is moving to a more PC style setup called Project Helix, but they haven't, I don't think, formally announced whether they will or will not have physical games. I wouldn't bet on it.
I think they said no disk drive for Project Helix.
Okay,
And
there you go.
they're starting to roll out the physical to digital conversion.
Yeah. So it does seem like they're going to be part of the team no physical games starting in 2028. And of course, PC's already been like that. And of course, mobile has been like that for as long as mobile gaming has been a thing. That still leaves Nintendo, Switch 2, last man standing for physical.
Evercade.
Yeah, okay, sure, and Evercade. But Switch 2, like they're a big player in the console space, but big picture, like in the global gaming market, that's still like less than 10% of the market with like mobile and everything put together. So this is, even if not like a terminal prognosis for physical games, it's definitely, let's say, like really bad as a development for people who like physical games.
It's in hospice.
Yeah. So I think just kind of like throw out the topic to everyone, probably starting with how are you feeling about this?
Not good. Yeah, I mean, I think of the four of us, yeah, I think even compared to Robert, I think I might be the one who not prefers, who just buys physical the most. Where possible, I'm going to buy it physically. Um, And so, I mean, it's a matter of principle for me. Um, I was the same way with music for a long time. I still have all of my CDs, I still have all of my DVDs and my Blu-rays, but I'm pretty positive I've shared this story before. It's brief, so I guess I'll just share it again. But like, going into my music one time, on my phone. I have an iPhone, I have iTunes and Apple, whatever, Apple Music. Um, but all of my music is either songs that I ripped from my CDs, from my dad's, my parents' CDs, Robert's CDs when I was like in my late teens. And it went from my very first laptop all the way to my current laptop and just going from like iTunes to iTunes. Um, and then the rest has been music I've downloaded, from iTunes, like I've actually purchased. But one time I was looking for a song by The Cure. It's called Killing an Arab. And I had my original MP3 basically of music file of that song came from my dad's physical album, Staring at the Sea by The Cure. And so when I went to go listen to that recently and the song was not on my phone, but every other song on that album was, uh, I was really frustrated because I know I didn't delete the song and I never would. Um, I don't know if, because I also tried to look for it in iTunes just to like re-download it and the song wasn't available. So this is a really good example of like why people who are very dead set on physical media are the way that we are, because iTunes, even though that wasn't their, I didn't buy that song from them. That came from my dad's album that I ripped myself. For whatever reason, they decided at some point we're going to remove it from your phone. And I don't know if there were copyright issues with The Cure or ideological issues, no idea. But it just goes away.
I have to imagine it was ideological. If people don't know, it's like, because I don't know, like the song title does sound kind of sketchy, but it's like, it's not that would make it okay for Apple to strip something off your device, but
Mhm.
like it's based on the book The Stranger by Camus. It's just like just retelling a scene from that book,
Mhm.
basically.
Mhm.
But I think it is like a cultural sensitivity reason that it got removed from iTunes.
Which is really frustrating for a lot of different reasons. But then, for me, the ultimate is just like, that wasn't even yours. I didn't get it from you. Yes, it's on your device, and your devices are enabling me to listen to it right now, but that wasn't yours to take. And really, I mean, my mentality, of course, is if I paid for it, it's not yours to take. But terms of service and whatever has a different opinion on that.
Mhm.
Um, and it feels incredibly frustrating to think that the things that we're buying, including games, we think that we own them because we paid money for them. Like, well, this is my device. I paid money for it. So this is now my game, even if it's digital, but it's not that simple.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's a really broad topic in terms of this. I mean, from a collecting standpoint, if you don't care about collecting, I think it's hard to kind of wrap your head around like, well, what does it matter? It's like you still get the game, you still get to play it. Um, but there's so much that goes into it. I mean, for one thing, I'm staunchly well, I shouldn't say staunchly because I have different services like PlayStation Plus, right? And you can download games and play them. My big issue is just I don't like that it has very systematically been made to push people towards this
Mhm.
because it's like, all right, well, we'll offer you the physical game still, but look, if you get it in the digital marketplace, it's $10 off, it's $20 off. And that's ignoring like Steam. I'm just talking like even on Nintendo and PlayStation and Xbox. Um, so people, on a budget are going to be like, well, I want to play the game, but I don't want to spend 60, so I'll spend 30 or whatever. And they won't do the same thing with the physical. Sometimes they will. Like when Nintendo has its Mario Day deals, they'll match the physical and digital sale prices. But they've just been slowly doing this to get you to want it and to like kind of program your brain into, yeah, do the service where you get a bunch of games like Game Pass, right? Give us $30 a month and you have all these games that you can play. But it's this mentality towards we want you to pay forever. And sure, are you kind of paying forever even without like a subscription based service? New games come out every month,
Mhm.
every week, right? Sure, whatever. But it's this idea for them of creating a virtually endless revenue stream where you are forever attached to them. You don't actually own anything. You are renting everything, is basically what it is. And as soon as you stop paying, you lose access. So you don't want to lose the access. So yeah, I'll keep paying for Game Pass. I'll keep paying for PlayStation Plus. I'll keep paying for Nintendo Switch Online. There's that aspect of it. There's the aspect of, oh, well, we don't want to have the burden of the cost of the storage anymore. Because every disc and every cartridge is a piece of storage, and we have to pay for it, and it cuts into the revenue we can generate. So if I charge you $70 for a game right now, we have to factor in the, whatever it costs to have the chip, right, for the cartridge, or the disc for the Blu-ray. And I mean, I should have looked this up before. I don't know what that number is. I'm assuming it's probably not super prohibitively expensive. I know the cartridges are more than the discs, but regardless, they just don't want to pay that at all. They're like, oh, well, we just want you to pay for that. And they won't frame it that way, but that's what it is. It's, we're going to put all the burden of cost on the consumer. You buy the machine, and now you have to figure out what you're going to do with the storage. And the storage, as you've noticed, does not continue to rise in huge amounts compared to what you were getting back in the day. At this point, you would think, so if you go back to like a PS3, like I think you were like, yeah, I'm rocking it, man. I got 500 gigs of storage on my PS3. Now you'd be like, oh, shit, 500 gigs, it's not enough. I need at least a couple terabytes here, 3 terabytes. The systems don't give you that. You got to go do that yourself if you want to get that much storage. Because you go from PS3 to PS4. PS4, you start getting into the terabyte range. But now we're in PS5, and the memory amount hasn't really gone up all that much.
That's partly because of the switch to flash memory,
Well,
right?
not just the Switch. I'm talking about the other systems too.
No, sorry. Switch, the noun meaning a transition between two things, not the Nintendo system.
Oh, sorry.
Like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series use SSD instead of hard drives. And the benefit of that is like basically no load times, right?
Mhm.
But it's more expensive storage, so we didn't get like a bump in capacity the same way we did in previous generations.
I also do think, though, it's just they don't want to pay for these things. They want to offset all of it.
Well, I feel like this whole transition it doesn't feel natural to me. I understand that the world has gone digital in so many different ways and so many different uh, places. I mean, outside of gaming as well. Entire generations of people now who only understand digital media. They've probably never held a DVD or a Blu-ray in their lives. All they understand is Netflix and the million different subscriptions services that they have. At the same time, gaming is different. Gamers are notorious for, clinging to physical media. But then also, they're talking about how the younger generations, especially Gen Z, there is a rapidly growing demand for a return to physical media, partly because these kids just and young people, um, they want to experience what they've never experienced before. But then I think are also understanding, like the older generations are, the limitations of going totally digital. So I don't actually believe, when these big wigs and top brass of Sony or Microsoft are saying, well, it's in response to consumer demand. I don't actually believe that, and I definitely don't believe it as it relates to gaming specifically.
Well, I'm a teacher, and I have kids K through 8. So I see a pretty decent spectrum of age groups. And last year during the school year, I have this Panasonic all-in-one television. It's like a, I don't know, 12-inch screen. It's pretty small. And it has a built-in VHS player. It has a little VCR in it. And so I have it sitting on the back counter in my classroom. And one of the 5th graders saw it. And she's looking at it, and she's like, what's that? And I go, it's a TV. She goes, I just want to go up to it and press all the buttons. And I was laughing, thinking, I take for granted, but these kids don't have anything with buttons on it, really. Like at the most, you might have a power button, but just the physical satisfaction of wanting to press the buttons, this girl is feeling looking at that old TV, and they don't have any outlet for it. And during summer school with the middle school kids, one of the 8th grade girls was talking about physical cameras. This is a trend with the young people, is having a physical camera. But it's also just, it's fun for them because it's like, well, can I take pictures with my phone? Sure. But these little devices specifically for taking photos are neat, interesting, fun. You can get them in different colors in some cases. Because yeah, can you go get a Nikon? Sure. But then I've seen them. They're popping up in my social media feeds. These colorful cameras that you can buy, and they're not super expensive. This is a thing people want.
Let me ask actually, because I don't actually know. I haven't used a film camera in ages. Can you still just take those to like a Walgreens or whatever, or get them developed, or
There's still photo centers in.
Yeah.
I know Walgreens has
Mhm.
them.
It
I
wa-
don't know if CVS does or not.
The
All right.
last time I remember seeing one with my own two eyes was just a handful of years ago, being in was it Walgreens that was on Lakeshore by Trader Joe's in Oakland.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I remember seeing there was a photo center there
Mhm.
still.
Okay.
I mean, we're even seeing this shifted vehicle design. The interior of cars now, they're talking about how the consumer is wanting less and less a giant screen like what you see in a Tesla or other similar vehicles, and wanting to go back to just manual, knobs and dials.
I wish I had confidence that the young folks are super into physical media. It's definitely like a trend, right? Like the cameras that you're talking about, or like
iPods. They're now wanting iPods, and now they're
yeah,
wanting instead of
Yes.
earbuds, they want wired uh
yeah.
Well, they want
earbuds.
the, because isn't it AirBuds the wireless?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
So,
no more AirBuds. They want the old school earbuds.
mhm.
The white cord.
Mhm.
I've seen my students with those too. And then
Mhm.
the
Do you see that
shuffle.
trending in
Oh my
videos
God.
too, where they like
Yeah,
talk
they're
into
just
the
talking
wired
into
mic,
the yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
Yes.
But like, and like obviously people have talked about like vinyl coming back to some degree,
Mhm.
but like to take vinyl for example, it hasn't come back that much. Like you can buy a turntable in Urban Outfitters or whatever, but if you compare vinyl today to what it was in like the 70s or 80s or what CDs were in the 90s, like it's minuscule.
Mhm.
Like that trend is there, but it's not like a market defining trend. And so like I worry that like there is still some appetite for physical, but not enough for like a mass market product like PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, I love this panel because we all have like, I mean, I've been digital for a long time,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but like, part of me, this is gonna sound weird, but part of me thinks that Sony did not make the decision; the consumers did.
Mhm.
I don't think they would have made this decision, like if they honestly felt that a big portion of people buying their products was physical. Like in my eyes, it's like why would they pull the rug on something like that if it was there, if it was that you know
I-
present?
Well, I find myself kind of between where you and Angie are at, because I do think the numbers aren't as big as Sony's claiming they are. But I also think that they want you to go in that direction, because ultimately the one that benefits the most from this is the manufacturer.
Correct.
Right? It's like no matter how you cut it,
Mhm.
it's, we don't got to make discs, we don't got to ship them, we don't have to do any of that. We just make the game, and it's like pure profit off the game at that point. Because
That-
even if it's $5 for a disc, that's still $5 per unit, right?
But I mean, for them to make the decision, obviously they ain't worried. If everybody who's physical only was like, screw it, we're out. They needed to have that like in the back of their head, like this could happen.
Well,
How will it affect us if
they
that
think
happened?
they think the bigger profit margins per unit are going to make up for
Right.
lower volume of
And
sales.
not only that, I mean, essentially, they call them the big three for a reason because there really are only three. With any actual, sure you get stuff like Evercade or whatever, but it's Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, that are basically in control of the industry. And so if Sony says we're going digital only, your only other options are either Microsoft or Nintendo. If you are just very staunchly like, I'm not doing that, I
Mhm.
want a console with physical games. But then if Microsoft says, no, we're going to do what Sony's doing to compete with them, it's like basically the point is they're saying it's going to be this way because they can say that, because the consumer really doesn't have much of a choice.
Well, to Zach's point, he was saying how, you can get away with selling less because now you're making up for it with,
Not having to make cases and discs and all
and
that.
like we've seen this. The comic book industry's been doing this for a long time, where they'll try to tell you how healthy the industry is in certain ways. And it's like, well, yeah, you can point to sales numbers, but in 1993, a comic book was like 199 or something. And now you go and buy an average Marvel book, and I think every Marvel comic is a minimum of $6 now. So it's this huge amount more, but you're reaching less people because now there's less people reading, but you don't have to reach as many because they'll spend the six and that boosts your numbers. And then you throw in things like variant cover schemes where somebody might buy multiple copies to get one incentive variant for their shop. And DC can say, look how many copies we sold. It's like, well, yeah, they bought 100 copies to get the one cover that they'll sell for some ridiculous amount and boost it. Anyway,
Yeah.
going back to gaming, to what Angie's saying, and kind of what I was saying, it's just forcing it. Like, these guys know what they're doing. When Nintendo came out and said Tears of the Kingdom is $70, like, that was Nintendo playing ball with Xbox and with Sony. Because they're all sitting there saying, hey, look, we've been charging $60 for games for like over 20 years at this point. And that's basically just what it is. And we've been slowly experimenting with ways to get more money, DLC, microtransactions, etc. But then over the past, I don't know, 5-10 years, something like that, what they've started doing is there's the premium editions of certain games, right? So, oh, Madden's out this year. Well, there's the $100 Ultimate Edition.
If you
And
want to
look at
play
that.
3 days early.
If you want to play 3 days
Yeah.
early, and people buy it. So Nintendo, they said, well, we're going to say Tears of the Kingdom is 70 because we're not going to keep it at 60 when Sony is going to go sell God of War or Microsoft is going to go sell Halo and get $70 for it. We should get $70 for Tears of the Kingdom. So with the physical stuff, now it's a little different for Nintendo because Nintendo's so synonymous with the physical that they're going to be the last ones at the table with it. But for Sony and Microsoft especially, it's like, well, you know, we want to make more money. This would be like a super perfect way of doing that. And we wouldn't have to touch the pricing, not for the benefit of the consumer, but for the benefit of us. Well, kind of for the benefit of the consumer, because look at what they've done. $80 games, right? Mario Kart comes out, it's $80. Well, they're looking at it like, realistically, if we truly want it to be where we should be, the games should be $100 each. Well, how do you do that without letting everyone know you're basically doing that? You get rid of the physical games. And so if you were making X amount of dollars off of a physical copy, you're going to make that much more because you didn't put anything in a box and you didn't ship it and etc. There's no cut from the store anymore, right? Because if you sell a box game at Walmart, Walmart's going to get some of that money. Now they're not getting any of that money because I'm just selling it through my marketplace.
And then guess what now? There's no reselling of games.
You can't resell it.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
like the consumer doesn't have the used game market to buy too.
That's
They
right.
have only one way to buy it. So
Which
I get that.
which has implications for preservation too.
Yeah,
I
I
was
was
gonna
gonna
talk
say
about
when you were talking, how I wonder like, okay, this is just an example that went in my head. We all bought Metroid Prime when it launched digitally, and then we all bought Metroid Prime when it launched physically for the Switch.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that double tap too. That pisses me off, by the way. But
Yeah.
that double tap, like, you know, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just like they're
'Cause that's
they
intentional.
know the gaming consumer, the average. I mean, maybe not even average, but there are crazies that will buy the game twice because they want the
Yeah.
physical version.
Yep.
And I'm
Yeah,
not
everyone-
calling you crazy, but
No,
you know
no,
what
no,
I'm
I'm
saying.
sure.
Almost everyone buying like a limited run game release,
Uh-huh.
if they were interested enough to buy the limited run version,
Mhm.
they probably bought it digitally already.
That's what I did with Ruiner.
right.
Ruiner came out, it was digital only, limited run, did a physical, I bought the physical.
Yeah, when I bought my PS5 Pro, that's when I completely went digital for PS5.
Mhm.
But I was collecting PS5 games up until then. I still do physical Nintendo games. But other than that, it's pretty much all digital. One benefit like that I'll say is good on Sony for the consumer is like, and Xbox, is this whole game sharing thing. Like I can buy one copy digitally and two people that I have linked can play the game simultaneously. It can be a story, any game. You know, the game sharing, I think that's pretty cool. You know,
That is cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. I do think though that, you know, if you want to be more, you really got to think about what this is doing for consumers, you know, and like for lack of a better word, the rights of the consumer. If I go buy, I have my copy of the Halo book in front of me right now. I bought this book and I can give it to anyone. I bought this book, I can go to half price and get a little bit of money for it. I can do all these things with something that's mine and I own it. With this digital stuff, there's nothing set up saying, well, if you buy a digital copy of a game, that should be no different than owning a physical copy of the game. It's not about a license, it's not about anything like that. It's yours. And if you want to transfer it to somebody and sell it to them or give it to them, you should have every right to do that, but you don't. And nobody's even really talking about that. And then, we talked about preservation, which I know we'll get to more in a minute. But the other thing I think of about this is it's such a soulless endeavor
Mhm.
because it's like, okay, Dom's got children and he could get to a certain point in his life where he's like, son, I want you to have my PlayStation collection and my Nintendo collection. And you've got the console and the controllers and the boxes and the games. All that's super cool. You're not going to be passing down your Steam library to your children. In
Mhm.
fact, when you die, they'll probably insist, oh, well, that was your father's Steam library. Well, we're not going to let you transfer all of that over to somebody else. So it's like, you're really killing that part of it too as you transition into this. Because, let's say you go all digital with PS6. Well, after a certain point, I don't know when, but at a certain point, what happens when that console can't connect to the internet anymore and it can't verify the licenses? Is it just dead? Do they say when we cut off the internet access, we will cut off the need for the license check and everything that's on it you can play offline? I don't know. I kind of doubt it. And we're getting close with like PS3. PS3 is going to finally close down its marketplace, I think, next year. And what happens when you get to the point where the PS3 just can't connect online? What happens to all your licenses? Are they just gone? And so, like, this is what they're steering you toward. And it's like I said, with that mindset of you will be a forever customer as long as you want to engage. Oh, well, you want to play, Sony games, you have to be able to buy the game and have the license and then pay for the monthly fee for this and that. And that's what they're envisioning.
Yeah. So at this point, we have touched on when I was getting ready for this episode, I was really trying to think of like what are all the differences between physical and digital games. And at this point, we've touched in some capacity on all four that I was able to think of. Two of which are like fundamental to just the difference between physical objects and digital, and two are just conventional, like they're a matter of how the U.S. and other countries treat digital rights versus physical goods.
Mm.
So the two fundamental differences are number one, physical games are physical. We are like, we're animals, we're apes. We like looking at stuff, we like holding stuff, we like having stuff, and you just feel differently running your fingers across a bunch of spines in a bookshelf or whatever,
Mhm.
and like hearing the sound a disc makes when it goes into the system, etc. You feel differently about that than you do looking at icons on a screen,
Mhm.
right? So there's just
Mhm.
like the tactile element of games. And then the other fundamental difference, which Robert kind of touched on, is like the dependence on remote servers, right? So not every physical game passes this test. The game key cards and also a bunch of things like, the newer Call of Duty games or 007 First Light, you can't just pop it in and go. You have to do a download also in order to be able to play it. But 100% of digital games fail that test, right? So like,
Mhm.
yeah, what happens when the servers go down or you can't reach them, right? That's
Mhm.
something that physical games can do. Digital games never can. And then the two conventional differences, which are just a matter of, it's called, I think, the doctrine of first sale, which applies to physical goods, but not digital goods, which is to say the consumer can do whatever they want with a product after they've bought it. The seller has no business telling the buyer what they can do after the sale is made. That doesn't apply to digital goods the way the law works. And the rationale is that digital goods are fundamentally copied, not transferred, right? So,
Mhm.
like if you
Mhm.
have a file on your computer and you move it onto a USB stick, it's still on your computer. So, as like this is just like the court system saying, like, we get like it would be too easy for people to make lossless perfect copies and share them without the creator getting anything. So, that's why it works differently. But as a consequence, number one, physical games can be transferred, bequeathed, etc., and digital games can't. And number two, Angie, you touched on this. Physical games can't be taken back from you unless
Mhm.
like Nintendo ninjas like break into your house and actually steal the cartridge from you, right?
Yeah.
Like you can lose it, it can break, but they can't like take it from you by revoking a license. All four of those are obviously important, and like key cards are an example of something that passes like three out of those four, but not all of them, right?
Yeah.
And I think I do wonder if like part of this is like, is there any chance that laws change at some point in the future to say that like, digital goods can't like first sale doctrine doesn't apply to digital goods, but if you're a seller of digital goods, you need to provide some process by which someone who has bought a license from you can transfer that license to somebody else,
Mhm.
something like that, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, we're seeing a little bit of this. For example, I know in Europe, especially, concerns over things you can't repair. So, like,
Hmm.
they sell you a product and it's like, oh, I broke, some little piece on it, so I'm gonna fix it. And they try to make it so that it's like, oh no, the only way you can fix it is if you send it to an official repair center that we own and operate, and we'll charge you a fee. And it's like, oh, I don't want that. I want to be able to fix it myself reasonably. And so there's protections being put in place in that regard. And so with the digital stuff, I mean, you would hope it eventually gets to that point because we're there. That's why I said, like, I do think we are at a point where there's a significant percent of, media purchases that are digital across everything, music, games, books, etc.
Yeah.
But um it's present enough in our society that I really do kind of think our government needs to start really looking at this. It's like you've got millions, if not billions, of digital purchases out there right now that the consumer is really kind of defenseless in terms of truly having ownership over. And the legalese of the agreements that you sign. Was it Sony that recently had to get rid of a bunch of movies, I think?
Yeah, it was like a bunch of, I want to say, Lionsgate movies that people had bought
Yeah.
Mhm.
licenses to through PlayStation, through Sony, uh, just gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's like I don't think anyone who made that purchase back in the day was like even remotely aware of the thought of like, well, you don't really own it. You kind of own it, and ultimately, once this license expires, if we don't have it anymore, you're screwed.
Yeah, and there's a sense in which you can say like, well, you signed up for it, like you checked the box, right? You
Mhm.
accepted it. But there are cases in the law where we like outlaw certain usurious interest rates or certain kinds of contracts that we say people can't enter into depending on the nature of like what the contract is for, et cetera. So there are some protections.
One thing that I have a concern about, and it does relate to games preservation, but it's also just generally about media preservation. It kind of reminds me of the novel 1984, and how in 1984 there's an issue with like the people who are responsible for editing the news. If Big Brother wants something to disappear from the collective memory of people, they can do that.
Like
Um,
who they were at war with.
yeah, who they're at war with, or
It was
taking
always that country.
or to taking photos. And there was somebody who was in a photo in the original, and now they want that changed. And so they'll put out a different version of that and then destroy the original. And that original photo is gone, and you don't have any more proof that actually the photo was different originally.
Literally a Soviet practice.
Right, exactly. And so we have similar things going on with games. I mean, you have Yakuza 0. You have, Zach, the physical version of that game.
Hmm.
Um, and then they take the original Yakuza 0, they delist it. So if you weren't lucky enough to have bought it then, and you're scrambling to find a physical one now, you will never experience that game originally. You will only know the director's cut because that's the only version they want you to know. But even I have some issues with the director's cut and some of the things that were changed, and I think that the original Yakuza 0 is better. When you take away the ability to look back on that media, it's like it never existed, and I really, really don't feel comfortable with that. I don't like it for a bunch of different reasons, whether you're talking about games or if you're talking about books. Like Robert and I share this issue with novels that usually for ideological reasons get censored or
There were a lot of
changed
edits to
or
like Roald
edited.
Dahl's books,
Yeah,
for
or edited,
example.
you
Yep.
know, because they're
Too
very
mean.
it's too mean, it's too racist, it's too sexist, it's too whatever. And so now you only have the newer versions of those books. And so he and I we prefer, especially if we're going to like half price or buying used books, to try and find the oldest possible copy, because then you know that you're getting the actual real version of that book. But to think that, there are games that will no longer exist, and there is just absolutely no way for you to access them anymore, and all you have is a director's cut version, or all you have is a censored or edited version. Ocarina of Time. I mean, that's another great example. If you don't have the original version of Ocarina of Time, you don't have an N64 cartridge, you'll never unless you play somebody's mod or whatever, you'll never experience the actual Fire Temple music, you'll never experience the actual Gerudo symbol, you'll never experience Ganondorf actually coughing up blood and not green goo, and on and on. I mean, I just do not like what it feels almost like revisionist history, which is what 1984 touches on. I don't like it.
Well, and people act like, oh, that's just being paranoid. Like that's genuinely not paranoia. It
Mhm.
happens. The
Mhm.
New York Times, I believe, has had multiple issues where they've gone and stealth edited articles
Mhm.
and people have caught them on it and said, you changed the article and there is nothing in the article saying it was edited. The only thing is that somebody saved it and can now look and say, yeah, see, you changed this and you changed that. Like you don't have control over that when everything's digital. It's we can go in, we can change it, we can alter it, we can tweak it. Bad words, bad thoughts, bad images, they just disappear. Look at the Tomb Raider collection.
Mhm.
The remastered trilogy, the first one, 1 through 3. They have the sexy posters of Laura that they took out. Now they said afterward, oh, it was an accident and we didn't mean to do it. My opinion is you did it because they were sexy posters, and when people noticed it, you were like, ah, crap, they noticed we did it. We got to put them back. But this is how they do this sort of
Oh,
thing.
you even have issues with like licensed music. If they lose the license to music in a game and then they need to switch it out with something else, it's not the same experience. They choose licensed music for games for a reason, just like they do in films.
I mean, what you're talking about is like if you're lucky, because licenses for music or other things running out is actually just often a reason for it to get pulled
Delisted
altogether,
entirely.
right?
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, we replaced it with different music. It's
Right.
just like you're never going to see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at like, Rock Band, Guitar
This
Hero,
has
all
happened with
that.
TV series too, Northern Exposure and WKRP. I think in Northern Exposure's case, it got some kind of re-release, like with the music missing. But WKRP was like a classic sitcom I'd never seen,
Mhm.
but it's about like a radio station, right?
Yeah.
It's just like you can't afford to re-release it because you can't negotiate all those licenses again. So it's just like,
Well, going back to what I opened with, sort of semi opened with Mario Kart. I find that very troubling that any game really. I mean, I've mentioned this a long time ago, how I used to play this game on Facebook called Restaurant City, and it was an EA game, and it was just like, you had a restaurant, and you had to keep up with all the orders and all the people coming in real time, etc. And then they just shut the servers off for that game, and it was gone. And just thinking about the fact that there's this game that I spent hours and hours of my life playing in my late teens, early 20s, and all that time is gone. I have nothing to show for it. I mean, if other people didn't play it too, and there wasn't, it wasn't the age of the internet, I could just be making it up and be like, yeah, don't you remember this game? I played this game. Does anybody remember it?
Yeah, if the Wikipedia article doesn't exist, who can say you're even telling the truth?
Yeah,
this stuff
and
is
it's
really
it's
weird.
crazy, and then to think that that's gonna happen with Mario Kart Tour, when again, the Mario Kart 8 DLC is based off of it, and you have and I mean, there are so many different, like, versions of the drivers in Tour, that will just go away forever, and unless Nintendo makes them DLC for World or something, or a future Mario Kart game, we'll never see them again. Um, Music that the only reason it's gonna be preserved is because of people ripping it and putting it onto YouTube, because Nintendo sure as shit isn't going to preserve that game's soundtrack, and there are a lot of good tracks from that game, music tracks from that game. All of the different cups, the different actual courses that you're racing on, completely gone, completely lost, and all you'll have is your memory, or maybe somebody's YouTube video or Discord, upload or whatever, footage of that game. Otherwise, it's just gone.
Lost like tears in the rain. I do want to say something about this. Like, there is an extent to which, in a lot of cases, this is just unavoidable. If I think about, like, I play Final Fantasy 14, right?
Mhm.
It's a different game than it was years ago.
Mhm.
My main job is Bard. Bard played best in Stormblood. I haven't been able to play that version of Bard since spring 2019,
Mhm.
you know? And there are whole dungeons that have been retooled, etc. A lot of balance changes. Things just don't feel the way they did before, and there's no way to go back to it, you
Mhm.
know? That's true for every live service game. I've never played Fortnite, but I have to assume it was very different a long time ago than it is now,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And this is just like a fact. At some level, it's just a fact of life, right? Where it's like, even in the physical world, like, oh, this used to be a different kind of restaurant, a different kind of store. You can't go there anymore. You
Mhm.
just have your memories, you just have photos, whatever. Like, to some extent, it is just part of life, but it is also kind of a sad part of life. And it's frustrating when these things get thrown away or effort isn't put into preserving them that would be relatively simple to do.
That's the difference, is that there are parts of life, like you're talking about, the impermanence of life and the things that you really cannot do. Nobody can do. It's not within the power of man to preserve. But the things that are within our power to preserve, the powers that be are choosing to not preserve them. It's a choice at this point.
And it's one that feels very deliberate.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're altering content after the fact, and in some cases, books that are freaking, years and years and years old, uh, that's something that's on purpose. So it's like, well, you steer people away from physical, it's all digital, the ghost in the machine. Most people aren't even going to notice. And then when you go to look at it later, it shows you the thing we want you to see.
Mhm.
And that's dangerous. And I mean, we have our AG in California is one of the ones that's suing the Paramount WB merger. And in the letter that he wrote for Variety or whatever it was to publish or Deadline, he's talking about, well, it's so important, movies and the impact they have on people and the stories that they tell, and on and on and on. It's like, well, I mean, you can apply that logic to a lot of different facets of entertainment, including things like games.
Mhm.
When the A's were still in Oakland, Henry Cavill was the team president, and he had like an open door for people in the community.
I'm gonna guess that was not correct.
Not Henry Cavill.
Oh, what's his name? No, I'm forgetting his name now.
Uh,
It's Cavill, but I'm forgetting his name. Sorry, not Superman. The A's team president at the time. He had an open door policy where you could come in and propose ideas to the A's. So I had this idea for like a digital library of old A's games, specifically the radio games, so that fans could listen to Bill King calling just all these amazing moments in A's and baseball history. And it didn't happen purely because it boiled down to, well, the MLB is going to charge us every time, if we let the game get played. And so that history is basically just, you better hope your grandpa has some, cassette tapes that he recorded some A's games on. Otherwise, you don't get to hear what Bill King was like. And there's nothing there that should be preventing this from happening other than that thing right there, which is the money. Well, with this stuff with the games, it's like, okay, I can accept that, maybe not every game experience will get saved. As much as I like certain mobile games that I've played, if that game goes away one day, it was almost meant to be a disposable experience. But that should not apply to everything. And especially things that are significant. It's like these are things that had a genuine impact on the development of the game industry, for example.
Mhm.
And now it's like you have absolutely no control over your consumption of it, your appreciation of it, your ability to share it. It's all being boiled down to the corporation that owns it and how they dictate the way it goes out. And it's like, well, I mean, okay, sure, it's your IP and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, this is why with the physical games, it allows the consumer a certain measure of control over how we get to appreciate it and look at it. It's like, I don't know, this might not be like the greatest comparison, but like imagine if the only humanly possible way you could see the Mona Lisa is if you go to the Louvre
Mhm.
and you go look at it in person and that's it. Like you're kind of getting that way with like the digital only and the strict ways that things are controlled. It's like, well, if
That's
you're gonna play Super Mario, the only way you're gonna play it in the year 2035 is if you are a Nintendo Switch online subscriber and you have the Switch 6. Otherwise, you're effed. And it's like, well, that kind of sucks. I mean, but I have my old NES and I can have people play it that way. But as time goes by, there's going to be significant games come out, and those games are going to be locked to this digital prison that they're creating.
Yeah, it actually also not sure if it's a great comparison, but it just reminded me of this. We have this historic house in here in San Leandro. I believe I've mentioned it before, called the Casa Peralta. And so there's a group of us who've come together who are trying desperately to save this house and restore it. And one of the suggestions that the library, which is in control of the house right now, um, run by not the greatest people, one of the suggestions they had, like, if the house were to be torn down, were to be to preserve it with digital tours. And, and then the house will exist forever. Not understanding the reasons why maintaining the structure and preserving the structure and restoring it and going back to having docent led tours and whatever is important.
Also, that site would be up for 3 years and then 404 for the rest of time.
Yes, exactly, because you'd get some, pencil necked, whatever bean counter in City Hall that said, "Oh, well, we can't afford to maintain this website anymore. The funds for this got cut." And that's again, the danger of digital only is if somebody just decides it's no longer important anymore, we don't have the funds for this, it's just gone. It 404s.
No, I think the tangible elements of things are important too, because it's like, well, I could walk through the Casa Peralta digitally, but I'm not going to smell what it's like in the building.
Well, also,
I'm not going to hear the floor creaking under my feet.
if you're an architecture student, you can't learn anything by looking at digital renderings of interiors and exteriors. If you're an artist or whatever, especially like to your example, the Mona Lisa, there are reasons why we preserve art, and it's obviously there are emotional reasons attached to it, but then there are teachable reasons. You're looking at the brush strokes, you're looking at the type of paint that he used, you're understanding how long it takes for that paint to dry, if it'll ever dry, because a lot of times oils never do, why it's important to preserve them the way that we do, and blah blah blah. I mean, there are just all these different reasons why having tangible things are important, and gaming is no less important in that regard.
There's another aspect of this too that I mean, we're already there. We've been there for a while, but like when you're using digital anything, there's a certain level of monitoring that goes on, whether you like it or not,
Mhm.
and you opt into it, like everybody does. In
Yeah.
terms of like, oh, we would like to collect your gameplay data. We'd like to collect this. We'd like to collect that. And they're analyzing every little thing that you do.
Mhm.
There's some dork sitting in a room who is trying to figure you out because you spent 20 minutes playing Candy Crush Saga. I mean, I've probably said it in this podcast before, but there's a lecture series at the college I went to, and they had a guy who was one of the designers for the Starbucks app. And he's just casually talking about how his entire job is trying to change your behavior.
Mhm.
We want to change your behavior. You come into Starbucks in the morning, we're going to figure out how to get the app to get you to come in a second time. And then, we want to get it so that, on your way home, you stop in again. And it sounds like it's not that big of a deal, but I really took kind of umbrage with it because I'm like, it's way more sinister than you think, bro. It's like, it ain't that serious. I'm using the app to get some points. So after I buy 100 coffees, I can get one free coffee.
Mhm.
But you're using this as carte blanche to psychoanalyze me, pay attention to what time it was, how long did he linger on this section before he scrolled.
Mhm.
And so the same thing goes into, and one more thing with that is, and it's some dude. It's not even a professional, in terms of psychological impact. And this is why you've seen lawsuits against things like Facebook, for example, where the nerds are in a room and they're like, we don't really give a shit that, teenage girls all want to kill themselves now because they're using our app and it's messing with their brains. So it's like that same group of people is also making your games. And every time you're sitting and playing, they're like, well, how long did he sit on the menu? What was he looking at? If they could scan your eyes while you played, they would. Like they
Mhm.
would
Mhm.
love to know where your eyes are actually looking. So they can say, hey, every time he's playing, he's looking at this. Why is he looking at that? Can you put more of that?
R.I.P. Xbox Connect.
It probably was. It
Um,
probably was scanning your eyes
you know,
every time.
Obviously, we're a little off track. This is true that we're getting monitored all the time, but that's true even when we're putting physical games into our systems,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of uncomfortable with it too, for what it's worth. I think before we move on,
Before we move on, it was Dave Cavill.
Oh,
okay, thank you.
I'm a
Um,
legit baseball fan.
Yeah, okay. I also looked a couple things up while we were talking just now.
Mhm.
Physical media costs to the manufacturer. For Blu-rays, they're estimated to cost like $1 or $2. And it's similar for game key cards on the Switch too, but for full-sized games that are actually on Switch 2 carts, it's like 10 or $15. It's actually pretty high.
Mhm.
And
That's
still,
how much it costs for just the
for the
physical.
manufacturer of the card, which obviously goes some way to explain why third parties on Switch 2 are opting for the game key cards. And I think it's also like a little bit worrying in terms of like what this will look like going forward. Like how many people go for key cards versus real physical. Does Switch 3 stick with real physical, right? If the costs are that high, especially if the like AI related hardware costs don't abate and reverse, right? Um, and uh, outside of that, I would say like I would like that's the only reason I'm not super confident about Nintendo sticking with physical because like the whole Switch form factor means that it is significantly more expensive to manufacture each game. Um, Outside of that, I don't think it's a coincidence that it's the American-led companies, Sony and Microsoft, that have abandoned physical.
Mhm.
Um, One other random point, not really connected to anything we've been talking about. Uh, did you guys know that Fire Emblem Engage is not only the most successful of Nintendo's mobile properties, but is more successful than the rest of them put together?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
It's highly popular.
Would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
It also kind of shows you with mobile, there's different audiences for different things, right?
Yeah.
It's kind
For
of
sure.
interesting.
For me, my big concern when it comes to like the end of physical media, like I think everyone who is Gen X or millennial has a lot of memories wrapped up in physical games.
Mhm.
Like going in person to pre-order games at GameStop or EB Games or whatever, like browsing used games, borrowing games from friends when they were growing up. I remember doing that. I remember like being in school and like trading games back and forth to try things that I didn't have because like when I was a kid, I could only play the games that were gifted to me for my birthday and Christmas.
My buddy Salvador gave me his copy of Ocarina of Time, the N64 cartridge, and said, "Beat the water temple for me. I cannot do it." And I took it home for a weekend and brought it back that Monday.
I was actually I was just telling you this, Zach. A few weeks ago, we had a family party, and Dom's oldest son was showing me Pokopia. He's showing me his island, and I did not know that you can have Pokemon live with you. And he had Scyther and Caesar hanging out outside his house. And he's like, "Oh yeah, they live with me," which I just thought was a hilarious concept. Um, but then he said something. I think I asked him because I love Scyther and Caesar. They're two of my favorite Pokemon. So I was like, wow, he has great taste. So I was like, what made you choose them and both of them? And he said, well, because they look alike. He's like, they look really similar. And I said, well, you know that Scyther evolves into Caesar, right? And he said, no. And he was like completely flabbergasted by this. And he asked me how, and I said, "Well, when these Pokemon were first introduced, the second gen, I said you had to trade Scyther holding Metal Coat. I said, but you had to, and I just explained to him, you had to have a friend with a Game Boy, and you each had to have a copy of the game, and you had what was called a link cable, and then you traded the Pokemon, and then your friend, hopefully, traded your your Caesar back to you." And I was just telling Zach how I felt I've obviously had a lot of moments lately where I've felt old. But that made me feel really old because I was just thinking unless like I dug out my Game Boy, you dug out your Game Boy, Dom, and one of us, I don't think I have a link cable. Maybe you have one. We have to find our games and then be able to show him that. He will never experience that. He will never know what in the hell I'm talking about, other than just like conceptually being able to grasp it.
Well,
And that made me sad.
that kind of goes to a thought I've had with this stuff, which like what I was saying about being able to pass these things down. There's two things I think of. One was when I was in college, before the world ended with COVID, I was gonna have like an interactive museum exhibit, and the core of it was that you would be in like a fake living room that felt like you were in a 90s house. And in it, there'd be all sort of 90s things laying around, a TV guide, a copy of magazines from that era, a tube television, an entertainment center. And you would physically be able to put a game into the console, play it. And like going back to the old games, if you've lived through them, I think that's important because I do think that there's aspects of the physical that you'll never forget, even if you didn't think about them to begin with. Like if you ever played with a GameCube, that system makes noises that are very distinct. And it's a lot different than booting up the GameCube app on Nintendo Switch Online, where none of that's present. You know, you get the startup noise, which is cool, but you don't get to hear the disc whirring or feeling the little mini discs that that console came with. Like all of that's part of the experience. But what I'm thinking is that there's no sense of value from these companies towards why that's important.
Mhm.
You know, it's like these are things you don't forget. You know, it's like you are they're key parts of your memories of experiencing things, giving your friend a game to borrow, holding the box, looking at the art, enjoying the art, the even little things like the instruction manuals. It's like as you move further and further away from it, it's like you're just getting to the like most brutal basic aspect of it.
Mhm.
On,
Yeah.
play game, and removing everything else that surrounds it. And it's like, well, how soulless is that, you know? And
It
it's like, is it a lesson that you learn in 10 years? You learn in 15 years? It's like how much of the engagement starts to go away as you get rid of any of the ephemera that's associated with what you're playing. Because,
The
like, here in the Bay Area, you cannot find Pokemon cards, right? You go to any place that's supposed to have them, they don't have them. And so what I think of is the kids growing up around here is it's like collecting those physical cards was such a huge part of that experience for people who grew up with Pokemon, being able to trade them, collect them, you put them in your binder, you get to show them off, you get to just look at them and enjoy them. It's like you're killing that aspect of your franchise because now the scalper just takes it and the parent buys it for $100 on eBay. The spontaneity of like an uncle saying, "Hey, here's a pack of Pokemon cards." Like you're in a safe way with them, and you grab one for them, or you're going through Target and you're like, "Let's go over to where the cards are. I'll get you a couple packs of Pokemon cards." Like that's gone, right? At least for the kids here. So as you do this with games, it's like you're killing part of just what makes this whole thing so special, you know? And it's like like I don't have any problem with Steam. I think Steam is really cool, but Steam I think exists in the background of like the traditional game setup, you know, up until Sony and Microsoft decide to stop having discs. Even to now, it's the same thing. You get to have the fun of going to the store, buying a game, having the box, sitting in the car. You can't wait to get home. You throw it into your PS5, you throw it into your Xbox. They're killing all of that. And it's like, it makes me think of when you're in middle school, you read The Giver. And in The Giver, it's like, what is this that I'm seeing? And the old man's like, it's called color. It's like, color? It's like, yes, we used to allow ourselves to see color and we used to allow ourselves to hear emotion. And so the lesson of the book is that you're stripping humanity of all these things that make humans humans. It's like, well, how much do you need to strip away from this pastime of playing games to the point that it's just nothing? It's again, it's press button on, play game, and that's it.
I don't think it's strictly. I mean, I think there's a couple things going on here. One is like we have a lot of nostalgia about games as we experience them and like the context surrounding them growing up, you know? Like when Robert was talking about the GameCube.
Mhm.
And we all have experiences like that with obviously I'm a little older, so the systems are a little different in my case, but I definitely have the like those thoughts and I remember going to EB Games and Babbage's and like
Mhm.
all these other places, you know? And I remember the anticipation of like getting a game and like on the way home, opening it up, leafing through the manual, all that stuff,
Mhm.
right? And I don't want to say that's not valuable, but I also think it's like not really like outside of something like the exhibit that Robert was talking about putting together, like obviously it's not reasonable to expect like a 90s living room to be like preserved in amber and accessible to everyone
Mhm.
because that, you know, there's so many different 90s living rooms and then you have like 80s living rooms, etc. Like that's not really the goal, at least
Mhm.
as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned, you know? But like there is something lost in the texture of childhood, maybe. I can definitely buy that. I
Mhm.
can definitely buy that. But my concern is more of yeah, just like access to the games. Like we know this is compromised in some ways, right? You know there's that ephemera that surrounds like putting a game into a GameCube,
Mhm.
and that's not there if you are emulating the game, whether on a Switch or a PC or whatever, right? And you know, some there can be different versions of games, and some of those are going to be lost to time. And there are ways in which it's like there's just nothing you can do because the sands of time will continue to accumulate and bury parts of the past. But at the same time, like I do think, yeah, I think preservation is important to the degree it is possible to do so. Um, and this is actually something which I think Steam or PC in general has been better at. Like, you know, this whole conversation is like spurred on by physical versus digital as the contrast, but like not all digital is the same either. And just like by the nature of PC games being on a PC, because a PC is the only major platform which doesn't have to be jailbroken for you to do what you want with it. It is yours by default, and you can do whatever you want with a PC. And that means that when the powers that be, like Sony or whatever, try and like twist the screws to extract more from you or change the deal after the fact. Like on PC, you can just be like, no, I'm gonna download a Fit Girl repack and pirate it. F you, you can't do anything about it. Or you can emulate the games or whatever. Like the fact that PC is so in the control of the end user, like that is anathema to what we're seeing happening on like an industry wide level of like you have to pay for a subscription to be able to play a subset of the PS3 games that we couldn't bother to make compatible with a PS4, right?
Well, one thing I want to go back to, you were talking about the something being lost in the texture of childhood. I don't think it's a coincidence that um in as the world as a whole has gone from tangible things and tangible media to digital everything. We're seeing people become hermits, and we're seeing people who no longer have basic social skills. And I think people underestimate how much even stores like GameStop helped create community when it came to games. People like to rag on chain stores when they come into your city or your town because, they run out the mom and pop shops. But the chain stores, and in this case, I'm talking about GameStop, actually helped foster that community. We had regulars who would come in, some every day, multiple times a week, whatever, and they just wanted to shoot the shit and talk shop about games. But then you had the midnight launch, and I worked so many of those over the 5 years I was at GameStop, and it was that feeling, whether you were talking about a game launch or especially like a console launch, having people wrapped around the block and you're all talking about this thing that you're all interested in. People who would bring they'd bring a little mini setup and then like set up a GameCube or something on the sidewalk or whatever to be able to play games while they were waiting. And none of that's going to happen when you have an all digital world. And like Robert was talking about, his friend giving him a game, asking him, giving him Ocarina of Time, asking him to beat the water temple for him. These um more I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but just there and this is coming from a misanthrope. Like I generally don't really care for people, but even I am just like there's something missing and something that's going to be completely gone uh in this changing world of just there's nothing physical, there's nothing there, it's all just this soulless digital everything.
To piggyback off of that, because what Zach said was something I thought of because I try to be reasonable with certain things.
Hmm.
Am I just caring because I grew up with the experience of the physical games? Because if you grew up in, if you were born in 2010 or whatever,
Hmm.
you've it's very possible you've never had physical games. Like your parent bought you a Switch and everything's downloaded on it or whatever.
Hmm.
So you might sit there and think, well, I don't care. I've never had that and it doesn't bother me. But not to obsess over, but you go back to the giver, it's like, well, I think you're missing the point if you're saying, well, if you don't have it, you don't experience it, it doesn't end up being a big deal. But it's like, well, yeah, but that's the mentality that I had about emotion and color and all these things that give life flavor. was, well, we just got rid of them, and then you don't miss it, you never had it, so what difference does it make? But it's like, well, no, you as a human, you intrinsically feel these things, just like the fifth grader last year who sees this stupid TV with the VCR built in and is just like, I want to press the buttons. With gaming, it's like, now again, mobile's different, right? But I don't know that I can think of anything really on mobile. There's exceptions, maybe Pokemon Go. But for the most part, a lot of the mobile experiences, it's like, I don't know that I would ever be like, I really want my son to have been able to play Bejeweled Blitz or whatever. Again, there are some games that are better than others. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like, I think the nature of the game, there's nothing there. There's no box. It's just that I played it for a little while and then they discontinued it. It's like,
I think
how much attachment will you have to the industry when you remove so much of the personality from it?
I would guess the people like Bejeweled Blitz is like,
It's actually really good, but
I believe you. Like no, I think if you grew up playing that, like if that was a mainstay of like what you played on car trips on summer vacations or whatever, you might want to pass that experience down to your kids. And I wouldn't doubt that people growing up on like Minecraft today will want to like show Minecraft to their kids and pass that down, even if it is like an all digital experience.
Yeah, so like kind of what you're talking about is like our nostalgia. So like how I'm trying to play with it in my head is my 7, 8 year old memories. It's like, playing Zelda or whatever, popping in and out the cartridge, bringing my Game Boy on road trips and stuff like that. That's kind of like mine, right?
Right.
So then I think about like my kids or kids now in 20 years when they're looking back. It's like my 7, 8 year old memories was playing games, playing my Switch in the car on the road trip. They don't have the copy of Ocarina of Time in their attic like I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think who's to say my memories like not just more cherished or whatever
Right.
compared to theirs? It's I don't know. It's kind of a weird,
Your
it's
kids
like
are still gonna remember like the smells and lights in the
their
room
nostalgia
and like the
is
snacks they were eating at the time and all that stuff.
yeah. So I mean, I think it's just with the times changing, like
I think for me, my biggest issue is ownership.
yeah.
I think it's just part of who I am personally, but I do not like the idea of somebody being in control of the thing that I paid for and then telling me I no longer have control over it. I'm sitting about 7 feet away from a cabinet that is filled with my Pokemon cards. That is where they live. And those, I mean, we're talking about, uh, I guess 98, 99 is when the cards first came out, and I've been collecting ever since. Um, I have memories. Like, I have Shining Charizard, one of the most sought after cards, and I remember distinctly opening that pack and pulling it, and where I was when I pulled it. And it has sat in a sleeve ever since. And I have Pokemon TCGP. I play it, every couple of days. I open up my packs and do all that, and it's fun and it's great and it's really neat. Like getting the full art cards, the ones that like show you a video and on and on. It's all cool, but the moment that Nintendo decides they no longer want to support that game, I don't have those cards. Hopefully, I'll take some quick screenshots, I guess, and like that'll be the only way in which they'll ever continue to live, so long as my phone doesn't die. But otherwise, like they just go away. Whereas, I have almost 30 years of cards sitting in a cabinet, and that's my childhood, into my teenage years, into my adulthood. Like I can see the 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 flow of my life through these cards and like remembering how old I was, where my life was when I opened these cards. And again, like I don't want to knock today's kids and their experiences and the things that they're going to have and the memories that they're going to have, but I have a really hard time believing that they're going to have as much emotion or appreciation tied into something digital, and especially if that digital thing is taken from them. It's like it's just taken away and they can't play that game anymore.
Well,
I don't know.
two things to that is, uh, I think part of my objection, the ownership part of it, but just that sense of this is what they want. They
Right.
want you to move to this.
Hmm.
They can give you all the reasons in the world, but at the end of the day, They're like, this benefits us. And they think to themselves too, if we could have did it this way from the beginning, we would have.
Right.
Like, if we could have commodified every effing thing you ever bought, those Pokemon cards, we wish they were never physical in the first place. We wish we had this app and that we could sell you packs that have doubles in the pack.
Yeah, just like in
You know?
in DCGP, yeah.
Yeah, because in
Yeah.
the mobile game, you can get 2 of the same card in the game.
I know.
It's like that doesn't happen to you in real life.
I
We're like, we don't care.
I have had that happen to me multiple times when a new expansion has launched. And it's like launch day of the expansion. It's my very first pack I'm opening of this new expansion, and there's a double in it.
Yeah, it's pretty damn annoying.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is, speaking towards what will the kids think, etc.
Mhm.
I've worked at the school I work at for 5 years now, and I can tell you that the children respond to our stuff very strongly.
Mhm.
I have kids who talk about, oh, my dad gave me his old Pokemon cards, and he
Mhm.
loves the shit out of those cards.
Mhm.
It is absolutely a thing. There's the personality aspect of it, I think, is important. And I'm talking about Pokemon cards, but it's like, even the games themselves,
Mhm.
I have a game club that I run. If I bring in an old console, the kids are all over it. They just think it's so fascinating the way these things used to be.
I had
Sorry,
Mhm.
one other thing too. Like, I had this interesting moment when I was in college. It was like maybe my 3rd or 4th year, where I was in a science lecture hall, and the teacher was talking about how she goes home at night, and one of the traditions with her kids is that they play Pokemon together. This is already almost 20 years ago that this happened. And so it was like DS era, I think. But it was already such an ingrained thing that this woman was playing with her own children. Now we're at a point where like grandparents probably can say they're giving Pokemon to their kids. It's like when it becomes just digital, I don't know how much the attachment remains.
Yeah, I actually had a guy at work on Slack um ask it was like basically like the random channel, the general channel. So like to all 10,000 employees, "Hey, does anybody have any Pokemon cards that you don't want anymore because I want them, for my son. They're very into Pokemon. He's very into Pokemon, but we've been having a hard time finding the physical cards." And it made me sad thinking of again this experience that these kids just can't really have as easily.
Yeah. What you guys are saying, I think makes a lot of sense when you're talking about. I think that points to like probably broad interest from newer generations in retro stuff, the world of the past,
Mhm.
and also just like extended stuff. Because like even if like Pokemon games go all digital in the future,
Mhm.
you're still going to have coloring books. You're still going to have stuffed animals. There are still going to
Mhm.
be like physical parts of the experience, even if the game itself doesn't have that.
Mhm.
So I think like it is true that there are things about the physical world that will appeal to future generations. I don't think that like I'm not confident that future generations of kids though or current generations of kids, the like kids that grew up with like streaming and social media and phone apps,
Mhm.
I don't think they're going to be particularly bothered that games don't come in boxes or discs. That's my that's my guess.
Mm.
They're still like kids are going to crave the physical world because that's the nature of being a human and especially a kid, just like exploring all that stuff, you
Mhm.
know?
Plus, the world tends to course correct. I mean, if it does ultimately end up being kind of a problem, again, you feel it, people as a whole react, and changes happen, I mean, our state eliminated SAT requirements for college, the California colleges. You don't have to take the SAT. And now it's a nightmare. And they're like, yeah, we meant well with it, but it's looking more and more like they're going to have to just go back to it. So it's like if the industry 10 years from now starts seeing a massive decline in attachment, then there might be some reconsideration in how they do things. I don't know what it would necessarily be, but if you are like, 10 years ago we had an audience of X and then we went all digital and now we have 2/3 of the audience, an entire third left, and they're not coming back. Sometimes you have to just sort of face facts and say maybe we need to change back. I mean, look what happened with Game Pass. They raised the price, they lost all these customers, and then Asha Sharma shows up and she's like, yeah, that was dumb. It's 30, it's back down to whatever it is, $32. And all of a sudden the attachment rate climbed up. A rare instance of like a company just kind of saying, we fucked up. That was too much, you know? So I feel like it will matter ultimately. And it's just kind of based on so much of what I see from the kids that I interact with. But I mean, who knows?
Suppose it's the correct call. Suppose there's no walk back. Suppose Switch 2 still has game cartridges, but there's no guarantee what Switch 3 looks like. And the world does go all digital for games. How do you live your life?
I don't want to stop playing games, so I'll just have to play ball with them. That doesn't mean I have to like it.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see any situation where I would stop playing. I mean, uh, I'm always going to be interested in what they do next. You know, like I'm sitting here wondering what's the Ocarina of Time remake going to be like and legitimately wanting to play it. But, you know, it'll be an adjustment. It'll definitely save me some space. Um, but I have such a bad feeling about it because it's just multifaceted for me. It's like there's all the pragmatic things, but then there's also the this is some corporate piece of garbage who's it's just more manipulation, and I don't like that part of it. But my love, because I think this is sort of what we're getting at with talking about passing it down, sharing it, etc., is that aspects of entertainment become so personal to people. You know, like your entire identity can be wrapped up in something that you love from entertainment. Look at some Star Wars fans. I mean, it's like they'll rip your throat out because you think Ryan Johnson really effed up Star Wars with the Last Jedi. Like there are people out there who are like, "You're just a this and a that," and like Star Wars just means that much to them.
I mean, you're describing like not just Star Wars, but like you're describing like all millennials, right? Like the people in my parents' generation who liked Star Trek, they weren't wearing like Star Trek shirts around, but like every millennial is wearing like Spider-Man shirts and video game shirts and Harry Potter
Harry
shirts and
Potter.
all this stuff.
Yep.
And, you know, is some of that by design? Probably. But I mean, it is what it is. People love this stuff. And so with Nintendo, it's like, I know for me, you know, there's huge chunks of myself that uh, manifest in, you know, through Nintendo. Uh, I will pick backpacks based on, you know, oh, that's a cool looking Nintendo thing. I ride a scooter around, people will see it. Like I think of that. You know, my water bottles, I'm like, well, you know, I can get away with having, you know, a really cool looking water bottle as part of my setup for my backpack for the day or whatever. All sorts of stuff like that. Anyway, I think that these personal attachments we have to this stuff uh shouldn't be discounted. And it feels a lot of the times like these companies do discount it when they want to, and they definitely take advantage of it as well. And that's frustrating as a consumer.
Yeah. And Dom, you were the one of us who's been most fully transitioned to digital as it is. So I can't imagine much is going to change for you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, you too, though, right? I mean, for the most part,
Yeah, I've
'cause you
been.
emulator play Steam.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But yeah, I mean, I think it started with Xbox.
Mhm.
Originally it was like Game Pass. It's like, well, Game Pass is all digital. And then you get lazy,
Yeah,
like me, and then it's like, oh, it's just a digital library. Just call it a day. So,
yeah,
and then now I pretty much transitioned to PC unless it's like a PS5 exclusive or something, and that's just all digital.
yeah.
Yeah.
For me, like I've never, I don't want to say never, but like as an adult over the past, I don't know, 20 years or whatever, I haven't been a collector. I've seen myself as like trying to maintain not a collection but a library. Like I want to be able to play the games. The physicality, uh the tchotchkiness of it doesn't matter as much to me as it does to Angela or Robert. When I'm playing games, when I'm buying games on like PS5, I do tend to buy physical, and that's like partly just practicality. Like you do have benefits to physical that aren't there for digital. Like if I spend 10 hours on something and I'm like, actually, this kind of sucks, I can sell it, get something back, or give it to somebody who's going to appreciate it more than I do, you know? So I've always seen that as a perk of buying physical for PlayStation or Switch or whatever that's not there for PC. And I see PC as having other perks.
Yeah.
Like, for example, longevity of a digital license. If I bought a PC game in 2005,
Mhm.
my machine runs that now. Whereas like the
Or
PlayStation
better.
library, yeah,
Mhm.
the PlayStation library, anything before the PS4
Yeah.
doesn't run on it. Nintendo's library, anything on the Wii U and before doesn't run on the Switch. So yeah.
So I mean, I was a collector big time physical. Like I still am with Nintendo. Like I have 2 full shelves of Switch games. And game key card or not, it could be the dang just case. Like just to have it. I'm a collector in that sense. But like recently I just took all my Xbox One and Series games off my displayed shelf of physical games. I haven't bought a physical Xbox game in years. But I probably had like almost 100 something game cases on the shelf. They were like doubled up. It took 2 bins and I put it in the attic. So like I was totally, a collector. I have bins and bins of games. I have them forever, but I think I just went with the course of the way of the world. It was just digital, and then PS5 Pro didn't even have a disc drive. So I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
it's time.
Yeah, these answers around the table are honestly why I think this is going to work out for Sony and Microsoft, because none of us are willing to walk away from what like 2027 or 2028 might bring in games. Like if there was an appetite for resistance, it would involve things like, well, I'm only going to play physical games. We have 50 years of physical games. I'm just going to play old stuff, or I'm just going to pirate or whatever. But like none of us are willing to commit to that. And I think we're some of the people. I mean, Dom's a little more laissez-faire about it, but like, the people to my right here are some of the most upset people in the world about this decision. And you guys are like, well, it is what it is. We're just going to have to adjust. So I doubt this is going to get walked back as much as I would like it to. I think, to go back to the point about people liking physical things and like things like the resurgence of vinyl, I think the real tragedy here is that because the video game ecosystems for PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch are all controlled by a single company, you can't really have a groundswell of like the equivalent of a vinyl subculture that would support some artists producing like low print run games. Like limited run games can't make a Blu-ray that you can play on a PS6 if there's not a Blu-ray drive on a PS6, There's like no hope for like the equivalent of like zines, or small print run vinyl for consoles. For PC you could. Like there's no reason you couldn't have like indie devs do like they used to at Comiket in Tokyo, where they would just like sell you like a USB drive with a game on it, and you could plug into your PC, and that could even ship in a box or whatever. There's hope for that on PC, but I don't know if there's any appetite for even that.
I'm sorry, I hadn't even thought about this until this very second it came through my head. What does this mean for the future of companies like Limited Run? Or
They're screwed.
yeah, I mean like
That's
game
why-
stores.
yeah.
That's why Limited Run started investing in, for example, it's what's that engine that they have? The Carbon engine. Because that is it's like a platform for people to port old games. And so even if you're not making the physical games anymore, you can at least say, hey, you want to port the Jurassic Park game again, on PS6, use the Carbon engine, and you can do that. So they've been trying to go that direction so that they're not just completely irrelevant, but and they love making their little tchotchkes, so I'm sure there'll be a market for that to some extent.
Yeah, they sell like soundtrack albums for indie games or stuff like that.
Like IM8-bit does.
Yeah.
I think beyond even just the physical tie, I think there might be a reset in the industry soon. I think it's just, inevitable, mainly because of games are costing hundreds of millions of dollars.
Mhm.
Like, and they're taking a decade to make.
And then when they come out, they're middling, or they
and they're
get
not-
slammed.
Like you look at, I think it was Soros.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the budget. Like they haven't made even half their money back or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but like that keeps happening, and if Sony keeps making these high budget games, and like we're all expecting that that Naughty Dog game to kind of flop. Like I think
Oh,
we
yeah.
all are pretty. I don't see a world where that is ultra successful.
No.
I don't know why, but
No.
I think there's hope for it. I don't think it's going to be a big hit, but like Naughty Dog, like Last of Us Part 2, I've seen people talk up like this, just the stealth and action mechanics as being like actually like super crisp and top notch. Maybe there's something that Naughty Dog will be able to show that will wow, but like it does seem kind of like out of step with the zeitgeist.
Yeah. I mean, profitability, I mean, they need to be profitable, to stay in business, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, it's a couple things. Like for one thing, like you look at development and how expensive it is, and it really starts screwing with your brain when you think about, okay, well, there's a few things going on here. You have AI entering into the mix, right? And you spend 2 minutes at GDC, that's all you see on the show floor is here's an AI to make your character, uh, rig it, animate it. We can do sound with AI. Gameplay is in some ways being, created through AI. Just like on and on and on and on. It's like, okay, well, the whole point of that automation is you can save money. It's like I don't have to pay anyone to do these things. So there's that going on. But then they're still complaining about like, costs and they lay people off. You're spending hundreds of millions to produce a game. And then here comes Claire Obscure. You would think a giant team made it. It's super good. It's long. It has great graphics. And it's like, so I really don't know what happened. See, it's the triple A side that's the real big question mark. Because the indies are like, we're doing our thing. We're doing fine. Here's Toby Fox, making Deltarune, taking his sweet time, doing just fine, probably not spending anywhere near as much as, Naughty Dog is for their upcoming game.
we talked about in the chat. Remember, we were like, it's no surprise these studios at Xbox. She's, the CEO's like, yeah, no, we're done.
Yeah.
We spent how much money on these 4 games that fucking flopped. So, like, you're totally on board with what you're saying.
Yeah, it's very odd, because I'm not going to get deep into this. It's just, but it's clear that there is messaging that's also become central to a lot of Western game studios in particular. But now you're seeing like with Xbox, right, where Asha Sharma comes in, starts closing down studios, laying off people. It's like, well, I think that was a very calculated move because it's a lot more palatable to have Asha Sharma doing what she's doing than Phil Spencer. So she's there, she gets to start cutting, and Xbox is basically like, oh man, like, we're going a little overboard with the feel good, worry about awards, not sales tactic that they had talked about internally. But how do we course correct? Because again, Phil Spencer's here and we close down Studio X that made the big award winning game because it was world changing or whatever, then we're going to get massive garbage. So she comes in, now stuff's closing. And people are losing it, right? A lot of the like mainstream game journalists are mad that some of these studios have been closed and so on. But it's like, you're not making things people want to play. I'm sorry. Like you had some of the Obsidian devs, they were getting very upset, because the layoffs, obviously. But like one of them was talking about, we've made really good games that people love. It's like, well, in the past, Obsidian has made some really good games that people love. Your studio is frankly kind of riding on the coattails of those past experiences. Now, within the past, 5 to 10 years, there are way less games anyone can point to saying, oh, yeah, that was a banger from Obsidian. So it's like the industry, it's like you got to figure this out. It's like you can't keep throwing so much money endlessly and then expecting to recoup it. The indie devs are eating your lunch. They're showing you can do a ton with less.
I got to stand up for Obsidian here because they got screwed over by Microsoft twice with both Avowed and then Outer Worlds 2. Those were the games that Microsoft decided we're going to like pump up the price. And then they were released on Game Pass at the same time. So it's like that's like a perfect storm for suppressing sales. I'm not saying those games are like 9 or 10 out of 10 games, but both of those Microsoft shot Obsidian in the foot. And on the same period of time, Obsidian also put out Pentiment, which is like a really good example of a game that goes on Game Pass and does well. And the Grounded games have also actually been hits for Obsidian. So like Obsidian doesn't really, I don't think, deserve to be in the same category as like Double Fine or some of these other like money burning
Compulsive
subsidiaries.
That's fair. I mean, to piggyback off that a little bit, Microsoft's definitely made mistakes, right? I mean, we've spent, I think, at least one entire episode talking about Game Pass and how that's supposed to work. And at least up to now, we're seeing it doesn't really work super great. Apparently, they're freezing contracts for a bunch of projects that were going to go straight to Game Pass. So they were like, oh, we're going to give you money, you go make your game, and then it's a Game Pass exclusive. They turned around and were like, never mind, we're not giving anyone money for that anymore because it's just not producing.
They took Call of Duty.
Yeah, they took that off of there because it's just like, look, at the end of the day, guys, you make money when you sell games. Like that's going to be the big driver here. And when you put 10,000 of your games into your $30 a month service,
Right.
how are you going to make profit, dude? It's just not going to work. So yeah, some of these guys are definitely getting screwed over, but it just, you got to satisfy the customer. Like,
Yeah.
it is a customer-based industry. It's like you're not making art. I will defend games as art, of course, but you are making commercial art. This is product. Give me $70 for it. Like so many devs ignore that part of the equation, and it really pisses me off because it's like, bro, this isn't a charity case here. It's like, I'm glad you're living your dream. You're making games. I'm happy for you. I don't want to see anyone get laid off, but at the same time, you show up and you give me Master Chief, and again, the dickhead appears to belittle him to any extent. I'm not down for that. And then you're like, oh, we've had layoffs and this and that. It's like, well, what do you want from me, dude? I'm not going to give you money for this shit. You want to F with the game. You want to, put messaging or whatever it is you're doing in it. And then you expect us to just say, sure, go ahead, keep doing it. It's not going to happen. And we're seeing that it's not happening. So it's like, if the industry wants to be healthy, you got to give people what they want.
Lunch was great. We've been going for quite a while at this point.
Yeah.
Covered a lot of ground.
Good stuff though.
Very multifaceted and
Different viewpoints too.
yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Tom, you've been quiet on the whole compared to this very loud side of the table over here. Any last words you want to share?
I recommend Adventures of Elliot. And already not. No, I mean, I think it was a good conversation. I've been on digital side longer.
Yeah.
And just more willing to just accept it. Because I do want to play games forever. That's the intention.
Yeah.
So, I think having the option's important. And I think it's undervalued on Sony side, like Robert's point.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see. I mean, I'm with you though. I do not think they're gonna walk it back.
Yeah.
I don't think so at all. Because the physical only people, even if half were just like, we're gonna stop playing games completely, I don't think it would affect Sony's pocketbook at all.
Yeah.
Well,
to be honest.
I'll say this too, and this kind of annoys me, is a lot of people, again, talking heads on like YouTube and social media, are up in arms over this. But it's like, yeah, but are you buying physical games? Like, I think a lot of these people who are bitching about it are buying digital. So it's like, you're not even practicing what you preach. And, you're sitting there saying, well, why are you going digital? It's like, well, you haven't helped.
Right.
It's like, if it was 80% of the business still, I mean, even though I know they would want things to be digital, they probably wouldn't do it because it's like, well, shit, 80% of our sales are still physical. But it got to the point where they whittled it down, and it's probably 40% physical sales, maybe.
I would guess less, but
now they're at a point where they're like, we can pull the trigger, we can get away with it.
Right.
It's just like with the price of the games, where Nintendo's like, all right, we got everyone paying $70 for Zelda, and a couple of the games we just put out, $80. Let's see if they'll pay $80 for Mario Kart. And damn it, we all paid $80 for Mario Kart.
Some of us twice.
Neither the practicing nor the preaching will help. You saw people try to start a boycott, and they were like, "For 1 week, don't use your PlayStation."
Yeah,
Like that's
I
not,
seen that.
you're
It
like
was
that's
all-
not going to help
And then
anything.
people was like, "Oh, I'm out on Sony. I'm going to Steam. This is the nail in the coffin for me. I'm going to Steam." It's like,
Yeah.
what? Like you're still digital only.
Yeah.
This is the better digital.
It's I don't know.
Which is kind of true, but still.
But the practicing's not going to help you. The preaching isn't going to help you. Just accept what's coming. And remember the 50 good years we had of physical console games being the norm. Thanks, everyone, for showing up and being part of this conversation. I think we can call it and say thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.